Chapter 832. Upgrading his bead of life was not complicated. Lu Li only spent 2 days, and his bead of life had grown from the size of a thumb to the size of a soybean. The smaller the heavenly jewel, the stronger the various abilities. Even average warriors of the noble lord realm could do this, not to mention Lu Li. The key was the last step, inscribing Upanishads. At this moment, Lu Li was still struggling. Should he engrave the mirror image profound meaning or the line diagram? The mirror image ultimacy was a 5th grade technique. It wasn't too low, but it wasn't too high either. It was easy to inscribe it. However, he did not know if he could successfully inscribe it. After all, this profound meaning was comprehended from the demon's memories, and its level was not high. The problem was, could the line diagram be considered a profound meaning? He didn't even know what the line diagram was used for. Although it was derived from the profound meaning of wind, it didn't feel like it had much to do with profound meaning. If he failed to inscribe it, he would have failed to break through to the human sovereign realm. Lu Li stopped. While resting, he kept thinking. After the time for 3 incense sticks to burn, he opened his eyes and woke her up. "What's wrong? Lu Li, do you have a problem?" Seeing that Lu Li was frowning, Jiang Qiling asked with concern. Lu Li forced a smile and asked, "Qiling, if there are 2 paths in front of you and neither of them can lead you to the end, then one of them has a higher chance of success. The other one has a lower chance of success, but there might be treasures. Which one do you choose?" Jiang Qiling blinked. She didn't hesitate for long. "Soon," she answered, "of course, I will choose the one with treasures. I might fail anyway. I might as well take a chance. Fortune comes from danger. All right, I'll listen to my wife." The smile on Lu Li's face brightened. He stopped thinking about it and decided to take her advice. He might fail anyway. He might as well take a gamble. He closed his eyes again and used a special method to engrave the line diagram he had comprehended into it. Although he did not know what this diagram was used for, he had already grasped the diagram, so carving it was very simple. Jiang Qiling didn't cultivate this time. She had a feeling that Lu Li was at the last step. She didn't have much time. She just had to wait for the result. Squeak, squeak, Little White was sleeping soundly in the corner. At this moment, it turned over and softly called out before falling asleep again. Lu Li's place was very quiet, but the manor not far from where they were staying was particularly lively. There was a huge castle here, the Hall of Patriarchs of the Demon-Slaying Hall. All the patriarchs of the Demon-Slaying Hall were here. Deputy Master had called for the patriarchs to vote. Deputy Master, or Grandmaster as of now, Ji Zhantian sat on the throne like a tiger or a dragon. His eyes glowed, sending chills down people's spines. There were seats on both sides of the throne, lined up in a row. There were 4 rows of seats on each side that were filled with people. In total, there were more than 100 people, all of whom were Earth Immortals. These were the most powerful forces of the human clan. More than half of the human clan's cultivators were gathered here. They deserved to be called the strongest force of a human clan. The only person in the hall who was not an Earth Immortal was a woman. Even though she was seated in the last row on the right, she still attracted a lot of attention. Ji Mengtian was the new hall master of the Hall of Youth and one of the elders. Jiang Qiling used to be one of the patriarchs. Xing Mu had appointed her as a patriarch a long time ago. That being said, Jiang Qiling never participated in the internal affairs of the Demon-Slaying Hall. Naturally, she could not come out from the Wicked Bead. Patriarch of Law Enforcement and the others noticed Ji Mengtian's presence, but they said nothing. It was Li Shang's authority to appoint the patriarchs. Grandmaster Ji Zhantian must have agreed. It was pointless for them to say anything. Patriarch of Law Enforcement sat on the first seat on the left and Li Shang on the right. Judging by the seating arrangement, the two shared the same status in the Demon-Slaying Hall. Before Xing Mu passed away, Patriarch of Law Enforcement was more powerful than Li Shang. Now that Ji Zhantian was in charge, Li Shang was more powerful than Patriarch of Law Enforcement. All right. Seeing that everyone was here, Deputy Master Ji Zhantian said, "I have gathered you here for 2 things. We need to vote on them. Patriarch Li, you do the talking." Patriarch Li seemed to be in his 50s or 60s, but he must be much older. He was a lean man with a thin goatee. He stood up, cupped his fists, waved his hand, and said, "Activate the inhibition formation." Some patriarchs poured out Xian energy to activate the inhibition formation in the hall. The inhibition formation in the castle was strong. Outsiders would not be able to see in. The hall was filled with noises. People were guessing what they were going to discuss today. They had to activate the inhibition formation. This was the Hall of Patriarchs. Who dared to sneak in? When the inhibition formation was activated, Patriarchly put on a solemn expression and said, "First of all, given that the 4 alien races are here, we do not have a good way to defeat them for now. Some patriarchs suggest that we use the originator artifact and let Grandmaster try it in person to defeat the enemies." The originator artifact. The hall was in an uproar. All the patriarchs knew about the originator artifact. It was the most powerful artifact of the human race. It was left behind by Emperor of Heaven Reverse. The originator artifact should not be used unless the human race was on the brink of life and death. What was more, Emperor of Heaven Reverse had explicitly stated that the originator artifact could only be used 3 times. After 3 times, the divine energy in the originator artifact would disappear and the originator artifact would become a piece of scrap metal. The originator artifact had been used twice in history. If it was used this time, the originator artifact would be destroyed. In the future, the human race would lose a powerful artifact. That being said, wasn't the situation bad enough? Wasn't this a matter of life and death for the human race? Lu Li, who had high hopes, could do nothing. Lung Wuxin had been studying the voodoo poison for such a long time without any progress. Once the demon-slaying city was breached, the human race would be wiped out. The 4 alien races all had their own originator artifact. The human race's originator artifact was dozens of times more powerful than a quasi-relic. If Deputy Master had the originator artifact in his hand, he might be able to kill the Asmodean Lord. By then, the crisis would be resolved. The hall was noisy. There were 2 opinions. One side was in favor of letting Ji Zhantian use the originator artifact. The other side believed that they had to wait. The demon-slaying city could hold on for another year. What if there was another way? Let's vote. After a while, Ji Zhantian made his decision. He had gathered so many patriarchs here for the purpose of voting. Voting at the Hall of Patriarchs was the highest decision. The minority would obey the majority. Once the Hall of Patriarchs made a decision, nobody could change it. Let me vote first. Patriarch of Law Enforcement, who had been silent, said. He stood up, glanced at everyone, and said coldly, "Personally, I think it is too early to use the originator artifact. So, I object." The hall was in an uproar again. Usually, people like Patriarch of Law Enforcement would be the last to vote. However, he was the first one to stand up and oppose in such a righteous manner. This was a slap to Ji Zhantian's face. Patriarch of Law Enforcement had great influence. His being the first to vote could influence the decision of many. Many were ready to agree, but now they were having second thoughts. Chapter 833. Patriarch of Law Enforcement sat down after casting his vote. Ji Zhantian threw a glance at Li Shang. Before Patriarch of Law Enforcement's party could vote, Li Shang stood up and said, "The shield in the city can last for another year and 3 months. The voodoo poison is not cured yet. Who knows what will happen? Once something happens and the demon-slaying city is breached, not only will we die, but the entire human race will be wiped out. Therefore, I think to be on the safe side, we should use the originator artifact right now. I vote yes." Li Shang's words raised another round of discussion, but the voices were low. After all, the voting had begun. Many people were wavering, but people from both sides began to vote. Some started to accumulate votes. In the end, the minority would prevail. I agree. I object. I abstain. One patriarch after another voted. The number of votes on both sides was close. Most of them abstained. If they agreed, they would offend Patriarch of Law Enforcement and Lu Li. If they disagreed, they would offend Ji Zhantian. After all, Ji Zhantian was the only chosen warrior and the Grandmaster. Agreed. Agreed. Toward the end of the voting, Jiang Tianshun, great-grandfather 3, and the others were worried. The majority had agreed. They were going to lose this time. Patriarch of Law Enforcement was calm. As a matter of fact, when Ji Zhantian voted, he already knew he was going to lose. After all, the human race was in a precarious situation. Many patriarchs were frightened. They were afraid that the demon-slaying city would be breached, and Lu Li would have to resort to the originator artifact. Besides, Lu Li had offended the five forces. The patriarchs of the five forces were all on Ji Zhantian's side. Many patriarchs abstained. Needless to say, Ji Zhantian's side had the advantage in votes. All right, a moment later, the voting was over. As Patriarch of Law Enforcement had expected, the Hall of Patriarchs had passed the resolution. They had decided to use the originator artifact and let Ji Zhantian use it to kill the Asmodean Lord and Master of Voodoo race. Take out the originator artifact, Li Shang shouted proudly. The inhibition formation in the castle was opened. Li Shang walked out with the 9 patriarchs. The originator artifact was placed in a secret castle with dozens of inhibition formations. Only when 10 patriarchs worked together could the originator artifact be taken out. Everyone's hearts burned with passion. Many of them had heard of the might of an ancestral artifact. It was said that it was comparable to a divine artifact and could increase a martial artist's battle prowess by 10 times. The only unfortunate thing was that the ancestral item didn't have much energy left. Once it was used, it could only be used for 2 hours at most. After that, it would turn into scrap metal. After a while, Li Shang came back with the 9 elders. The barrier inside the castle was opened again. Li Shang walked in with a huge dark golden iron box in his hand. The iron box was more than 3 meters long, and there were mysterious patterns carved on it. With a single glance, one could tell that this was not an ordinary item. The box containing the ancestral artifact was already so extraordinary. Just how powerful was the ancestral artifact inside? Under the burning gazes of countless people, Li Shang walked to Ji Zhantian. He bowed slightly, held the box high, and said, "Grand Master, please take the originator artifact." "All right." Ji Zhantian stood up. Violent energy spread out from him. His eyes glowed. He grabbed the iron box and slowly opened it. Buzz, a ray of dark golden light shone out from the iron box. Ji Zhantian reached into the box and took out a magnificent sword. It was a dark golden sword with a length of 3 meters. There were dark golden patterns all over the body of the sword. It was splendid and domineering. On the handle of the sword, there were 2 characters written in bold calligraphy, Heaven Reverse. It was just a sword. Xian energy had not been poured into it yet. Already, the sword itself was suffocating. The sword shone with a dark golden light, like the most beautiful color in the world. It dazzled the eyes of the group of people, and many people's souls were captivated. Buzzing, the ring on Ji Zhantian's hand glowed. He put away the originator artifact. He would not use it now. Once he did, he could only use the sword for 2 hours. He had to use it at the most critical moment. All right, let's move on to the second topic. Ji Zhantian turned to Li Shang, who did not say anything. Instead, Li Shang turned to Ji Mengtian and said, "This is Hall Master Ji's suggestion. Let her explain." Swish, 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 a glint of coldness rose in the eyes of Jiang Tianshun and great-grandfather 3. They had a bad feeling about this. Ji Mengtian was not nervous at all despite being the center of attention. She put on a sweet smile, stood up, bowed, and walked to the front of the stage. She bowed again and said, "Dear elders and patriarchs, thanks to your concern, the Hall of Youth has been established. I have a heavy responsibility, and I will not slack off. I have united most of the young warriors in the city. We are working together to protect the human race." Ji Mengtian's words were appropriate. She had a high status and a beautiful face. The old warriors nodded in agreement. She paused for a moment and put on a solemn look. "With the concerted efforts of the Hall of Youth, we have found a way to solve the crisis facing the demon-slaying city. If everything goes well, the success rate will be 80%. What? The crowd was boiling with excitement. The old warriors had been thinking for a long time without finding a solution. How could Ji Mingtian say she had found a way? The success rate was 80%. Many old warriors stood up and asked Ji Mingtian questions at once. They were not stingy with their compliments. They stated that if Ji Mingtian could solve the crisis, she would be the greatest hero of the human race in the past 100,000 years. Dear elders and patriarchs, don't be hasty. Ji Mingtian raised her hand with a smile to calm the crowd down. When the castle quieted down, she said, 10 days ago, I sent someone to meet the Asmodean Lord and we reached an agreement. As long as we give him an item, he will make an Asmodean blood oath that he will retreat and the 4 alien races will not attack the human race for 10,000 years. Agreement? Many people were taken aback. Ji Mingtian was negotiating with the Asmodean Lord? She was colluding with the enemy. That being said, Ji Mingtian must be capable and brave to be able to talk to the Asmodean Lord. Is it true? What item? The hall was filled with chatter again. Patriarch of Law Enforcement showed no expression. Jiang Tianshun and Great-Grandfather 3 looked at each other. Their expressions changed again. Li Shang waved his hand to calm them down. Ji Mingtian said, Of course. I will not lie to you about such an important matter. The Asmodean Lord's messenger is in the demon-slaying city. Grandmaster and Patriarch Li have asked in person. Ji Mingtian continued with a gentle smile. As for the item that the Asmodean Lord wants, it is young Master Lu Li's Wicked Bead. The Asmodean Lord stated that as soon as he gets the Wicked Bead, he will retreat or he will fight to the death. Lu Li? The Wicked Bead? The excitement in many people's eyes died down. How could Lu Li hand over the Wicked Bead? Also, if he knew that they were after his Wicked Bead, he would fly into a rage and start a killing spree. For the first time, Patriarch of Law Enforcement's face was clouded. Jiang Tianshun and Great-Grandfather 3 were filled with murderous intent. Ji Mingtian had not given up yet. The 4 alien races were at their doorstep. They were on the brink of extinction. How could they fight among themselves? Ji Mingtian ignored the murderous looks from Jiang Tianshun and the others. She walked around in the hall gracefully and said with confidence, You must be worried that young Master Lu will not give up the Wicked Bead, right? Don't worry. As long as the Hall of Patriarchs agrees and cooperates with me, I am 80% sure that young Master Lu will give up the Wicked Bead. P.S. I only have 3 chapters today. I have been on the road for half a day. I am now in Changsha. I will start the examination tomorrow. I owed 4 chapters and now I owe 5. Chapter 834. 80%. Many people's eyes glowed when they heard this. If Lu Li could give up the Wicked Bead and the Asmodean Lord could get the Wicked Bead and retreat, many people would be delighted. What was the purpose of the demon-slaying hall? It was to protect the human race. Nothing else mattered. This time, because of the sorcerer god's poison, the human race's experts could not fight. Heaven Murder City, Earth Murder City, and Monster Murder City had fallen one after another, and the human race was in a precarious situation. They had no choice but to use their ancestral artifacts. Even if he used an ancestral artifact, could he really kill the great demon god? Even the patriarchs were not optimistic, let alone Ji Zhantian. Because the Asmodean Lord had the profound meaning of space transfer, Ji Zhantian would be teleported away as soon as he got close to the Asmodean Lord. Ji Zhantian will be dumbfounded. The originator artifact could only last for 2 hours. By the time Ji Zhantian came back, the originator artifact would be useless. Everyone knew about the heavenly devil Great Emperor. He was the true god that the devil race worshipped. If the great devil god really made a heavenly devil blood oath, he would definitely retreat. 10,000 years later, the great demon god would have died, and the human race would continue to produce new powerhouses. At that time, the human race might be able to suppress the 4 races. What would Lu Li think? Not many people would mind as long as they could get the Wicked Bead. Otherwise, Lu Li would be enraged, and there would be a bloodbath in the demon-slaying city. One of the elders voiced out his doubts. Elder Mingtian, can you tell us your entire plan? If it is feasible, we can discuss further. Many people stared at Ji Mingtian in surprise. What could she do to make Lu Li hand over the wicked bead? Lu Li was rebellious, cruel, and merciless. The consequences of angering him would be unpredictable. Very simple. Ji Mingtian's eyes glowed. There's an entrapment formation in the demon-slaying city, right? As long as the formation is activated, Lu Li will not be able to move. Leave the rest to me as to how to make young Master Lu hand over the wicked bead. If I can't do it, I'll take full responsibility for this matter and kill myself as an apology. The whole place was strangely quiet. Ji Mingtian had used her life as a guarantee, but it did not make people more confident. There was indeed an entrapment formation in the city, but it was not certain if it could trap the wicked bead. What was more, there were many people on Lu Li's side in the city. The demon-slaying hall might have a civil war. Many people looked at Jiang Tianshun, great-grandfather 3, and the others. Some people even looked at Patriarch of Law Enforcement. If Patriarch of Law Enforcement was enraged, who would dare to support him? Ji Mingtian glanced at Jiang Tianshun's great-grandfather 3. She pursed her lips and said, "Don't be too nervous. We are not targeting young Master Lu this time. But this is the truth. The Asmodean Lord clearly wants the wicked bead. For the sake of the human race, we have to do this. Not only will we not target young Master Lu, but we will also reward him for his righteousness. I believe that young Master Lu will make some concessions for the sake of the human race, right?" Ji Mingtian spoke sanctimoniously and righteously. No one could refute her. It seemed that Ji Mingtian was doing this for the sake of the human race. Judging from the expressions of Ji Zhantian and Li Shang, there was no problem in reaching an agreement with the Asmodean Lord. Is Ji Zhantian taking the originator artifact to deal with Lu Li or the wicked bead? A bold idea came to Jiang Tianshun's mind. Using the originator artifact to deal with the Asmodean Lord might be a bit of a stretch. The originator artifact would be useless after spatial transference. That being said, the originator artifact will be useful to deal with Lu Li. Everyone, Ji Zhantian finally spoke. Solemnly, he said, "Mingtian is right. We're not targeting Lu Li this time. I do have some personal grudges against him, but I can make a clear distinction between personal grudges and the greater good of the human race. I have summoned the Asmodean Lord's messenger in person, and the agreement is fine. Therefore, for the greater good of the human race, I will have to put Lu Li in a difficult position. I promise you that after Lu Li gives up the wicked bead, he will become an honorary patriarch of the demon-slaying hall. Anyone that dares to target him will be punished by the demon-slaying hall. All right, let's vote." Ji Zhantian was about to vote, but no one said anything. Li Shang cleared his throat and said, "I will be the first to vote. I agree with Patriarch Mingtian's plan." Patriarch of Law Enforcement showed no emotion. He said nothing and did not object. Those on Ji Zhantian's side began to vote, especially the patriarchs of the 5 families. After all, they had followed Ji Zhantian to the bitter end. "I object." When a number of votes reached more than 20, Patriarch of Law Enforcement finally spoke. He glared at Ji Zhantian and the others coldly and said, "This is risky. I cannot control the outcome if it does not end well. If you insist on doing this, you will have to face the consequences." With that said, Patriarch of Law Enforcement stood up and was about to leave. However, the Patriarch in charge of the inhibition formation in the hall did not activate it. Li Shang said coldly, "Patriarch of Law Enforcement, the result is not out yet. Why are you in such a hurry to leave?" Killing intent surged out from Patriarch of Law Enforcement. He glared at Li Shang and said, "What? Do you want to control me as well? Are you afraid that I will leak the secret? How about you kill me and put an end to all troubles?" "Yes, we object as well." Jiang Tianshun, great-grandfather 3, and the other patriarchs stood up and stood behind Patriarch of Law Enforcement. Clearly, they were on the same side. "Ha Condor!" All of a sudden, Ji Zhantian bellowed. He pounded the table and said, "Don't forget who you are. You are Patriarch of Law Enforcement of the Demon-Slaying Hall. You are no longer the forefather of the Lu family. The Lu family has nothing to do with you anymore. Once you join the Demon Slaying Hall, you will be a member of the Demon Slaying Hall for the rest of your life. You must prioritize the interests of the Demon Slaying Hall and the greater good of the human race. Hawk Condor was the name of Patriarch of Law Enforcement. Not many people knew this name, and even fewer dared to say it out loud. Ji Zhantian's shout in public had made his anger clear. Jiang Tianshun and Great-Grandfather Three's wives were taken aback. Everything in this meeting was within the rules of the Demon Slaying Hall. Ji Zhantian and the other patriarchs were not at fault. If Patriarch of Law Enforcement were to go against them, Ji Zhantian would have the right to kill them on the spot. The other patriarchs would not have the heart to do that, but they would just stand by and watch. Li Shang and the other patriarchs stood up and glared at the patriarchs. Their intention could not be clearer. If Patriarch of Law Enforcement insisted on going out, then they would have to fight. For a moment, the atmosphere in the hall was suffocating. Many patriarchs held their breaths, fearing that a fight would break out and the hall would be flooded with blood. Patriarch of Law Enforcement remained calm, but he was hesitating. Judging by the way Ji Zhantian and the others were behaving, if Patriarch of Law Enforcement were to fight to the end, a fight would be inevitable. Ji Zhantian was at the semi-god realm, and he could defeat all of them on his own. Never mind. After a while, Patriarch of Law Enforcement laughed at himself and went back to his seat. Instead of looking at Ji Zhantian, he stared at Ji Mengtian and said, "Ji Mengtian, you know what kind of person Lu Li is. I hope you will not make a mistake." "Ha ha." Ji Mengtian smiled and bowed. "Patriarch of Law Enforcement, you are right. I will keep it in mind. All right, let's go on." Ji Zhantian sat down, waved his hand, and went on with the voting. But what was the point of voting? Most of the patriarchs had abstained. Patriarch of Law Enforcement only had a dozen votes, while the other side had more than 30. Yes. Chapter 835. Under normal circumstances, the god confining formation would not be used, because this formation was not used to trap enemies, but to trap people on one side. Basically, enemies could not enter the demon-slaying city. If they could, the entrapment formation would be useless. Therefore, in history, the entrapment formation had been used 3 times, all to trap traitors of the human race. As usual, nobody went out except for Li Shang and the 9 patriarchs. To prevent Jiang Tianshun, Great-Grandfather Three, and the others from leaking information, Ji Zhantian had sent someone to spy on them. Great-Grandfather Three and the others were anxious. Their eyes were spitting fire. However, they could not do anything or they would be killed by Ji Zhantian in the name of righteousness. Their names would be tarnished. Patriarch of Law Enforcement kept a straight face. Inside, he was sneering. He knew Lu Li well. This time, they might not get the wicked bead. On top of that, they might infuriate Lu Li, which would lead to a bloodbath in the city. Time moved on. After the time for 3 incense sticks to burn, a ray of light suddenly rose from one of the castles. The light was dazzling, and there was some fluctuation in space. Everyone in the city was alarmed. Buzzing, the ray of light reached the colorful shield in the sky, and then fell back down to cover a castle in the city. That castle was covered in a red shield. The red shield was not as gentle as regular shields. Instead, it was filled with a murderous aura that made people's hair stand on end. It was as if there was an indescribable power within the shield, and anyone who was enveloped by the shield would be refined by it. Whoosh, 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 such a sudden change in the city caused many people to fly up at once. When they saw the castle under the red shield, many were taken aback. Entrapment formation. What is Grandmaster doing? The formation is locking down the castle where Lu Li is. Is Grandmaster going to do something to Lu Li? What? The 4 alien races are attacking the city, but the humans are fighting among themselves. Grandmaster is... Shut up. Many people had heard of the god-trapping formation. The blood-colored barrier was too obvious, and many people guessed it immediately. The expressions of countless soldiers and experts changed, and their hearts became even more uneasy. Got it, young Buching, Phantom Chariot, and Granny Butterfly Flower flew up. The 3 of them looked at each other with joy on their faces. The three of them were also very familiar with the God-confining array. Not only did this array have astonishing defensive capabilities, but it also had a strong suppressive force. The cultivators inside could not even use 30% of their combat power. Most importantly, this formation also had a strong melting function, which could melt everything inside it, including people and objects. In history, several Earth immortals were smelted to death by it. Whoosh, whoosh, several people flew out from the formation. It was Lu Renhuang, Uncle 9 of the Jun family, and the others. The six of them looked at the blood-red formation outside the castle. Their faces were clouded. This, without saying a word, Lu Renhuang took out his golden spear and stabbed at the barrier. However, this move did not make the shield tremble. Instead, he was bounced off. "Oh no!" Lu Renhuang shouted. A glint of anger rose in his eyes as he shouted, "Ji Zhantian, show yourself!" Boom, 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 boom. Uncle 9 of the Jun family and the others took actions. However, their attacks were suppressed. They could not inflict any damage on the shield. What was more, blood-red smoke began to spread out from the shield. They could tell that the smoke had some strange power that was corroding and melting their bodies. "Inform young Master Li," Uncle 9 of the Jun family yelled. He flew into the castle and slapped at the wicked bead. The wicked bead and Lu Li were one. When the wicked bead was under attack, Lu Li would know immediately. However, nothing happened to the wicked bead after 3 slaps. Lu Li didn't seem to notice. He didn't use psychic power to check. "Oh no, young Master, Li must be trying to reach the human sovereign realm." The Earth Immortal Realm warrior complained to himself. Lu Li had said before that he should not be alarmed unless something serious happened. Now that he could not be alarmed, it was highly likely that Lu Li was at a critical moment in reaching the human sovereign realm. Lu Li could not spare time to deal with them. The Earth Immortal Realm warrior had no choice but to rush out and report the situation to the others. Anxiety and anger were written all over their faces. Even though Lu Renhuang had the 9th rank mystic armor and they had quasi-relics, they could tell that the blood-red smoke was poisonous. It could seep into their bodies through their pores and corrode their bodies. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. From the Hall of Patriarchs, many people flew out. Ji Zhantian led the Patriarchs, and so did Patriarch of Law Enforcement. Lu Renhuang and Patriarch of Law Enforcement looked at each other. Lu Renhuang's heart was weighed down. He could see the helplessness and pain in Patriarch of Law Enforcement's eyes. It meant that not even Patriarch of Law Enforcement could stop this. "Stay put in the city. Go back." Ji Zhantian stood in midair with pride. He glanced over the city and shouted, "This is a plan approved by the Hall of Patriarchs. Everything is for the sake of the demon-slaying hall, for the sake of the human race. We will not start a civil war. Go back." Ji Zhantian commanded high authority at the demon-slaying hall. Many warriors stepped back as soon as he spoke, but their psychic power was still focused on the city. Many people were in a state of anxiety. When 2 tigers fought, one of them would be hurt. Whoever was hurt would be a loss for the human race. What was more, it was said that Lu Li was cruel and cruel. How could Lu Li not be angry that Ji Zhantian was plotting against him? If Lu Li could break through the entrapment formation, the city would be littered with dead bodies. When things settled down in the city, Ji Zhantian turned to the castle under the entrapment formation and said, "Lu Li, come out for a chat." Through the entrapment formation, many people focused on the wicked bead floating in the castle, waiting for Lu Li to come out. Ji Mingtian led the 2 patriarchs and flew forward a few feet. She had a faint smile on her face, and her eyes were shining with confidence. She believed that as long as Lu Li came out, she was 80% sure that she could persuade him to give up the wicked bead. For this day, she and Lu Swan had been planning for days. Nothing could go wrong. As long as Lu Li gave up the wicked bead, the Asmodean Lord would leave, and she would become the hero of the human race. As for Lu Li, without the wicked bead, he was nothing. His life and death would be at their mercy. Ji Zhantian would not allow Lu Li to live, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Thinking of this, Ji Mengtian's smile grew even brighter. She glanced at a small castle below and exchanged glances with a young, elegant, and handsome man. Both of their eyes were filled with murderous intent. However, a moment later, Luli did not come out. He did not respond to Ji Zhantian's words. The patriarchs felt they had been slapped on the face by Luli. Ha ha! Ji Mingtian smiled and said, Luli, hiding in the wicked bead is pointless. Can you hide in there forever? You can hide, but can the others? Come out. Ji Mingtian's last sentence was filled with a strong sense of threat, which made many people's faces turn unnatural. Ji Mingtian was using innocent people to threaten Luli. How despicable! Still, Luli gave no response. After a moment, the sky outside the demon-slaying city suddenly changed. There were many alien races around. Those alien races did not pay too much attention to the movements of humans. They kept on surrounding the demon-slaying city and kept on attacking. At the moment, Xianxi in heaven and earth was surging toward the demon-slaying city. At first, the Xianxi was not fast or dense. Gradually, it became more and more intense. What? The Asmodean Lord, who was sitting on the peak of a mountain, sensed it. He raised his eyebrows in surprise. Emperors of the other 3 alien races were nearby, and they sensed it as well. Something is wrong. The Xianxi in heaven and earth was becoming more and more intense. Finally, the Asmodean Lord's expressions changed. Looking up to the sky, he murmured, What is happening at the demon-slaying city? Why is the Xianxi in heaven and earth trembling so violently? P.S. 2 chapters were written. I went to the hospital today. I am waiting for the result. I hope it is okay. Chapter 836. Such rich Xianxi in heaven and earth, some powerful warriors of the 4 alien races felt it. The 4 alien races cultivated different methods, but they all absorbed the same source of energy, Xianxi in heaven and earth. Naturally, they could feel the violent Xianxi. Usually, when someone released a powerful, profound meaning, there would be some Xianxi in heaven and earth. But not this horrifying. At the moment, Xianxi was gathering above the demon-slaying city. Not even the average warriors of the 4 alien races would believe that there was nothing wrong in the city. What? Ji Zhantian felt it as well. Even though there was a colorful shield outside the city, warriors of the semi-god realm could use psychic power to check. Warriors of the semi-god realm were sensitive. How could they not notice something was wrong? Ji Zhantian looked up into the sky and through the warriors of the 4 alien races. He used psychic power to check. Soon he was in doubt. Xianxi in heaven and earth was gathering above the demon-slaying city. Then, it was not caused by the 4 alien races, but by the demon-slaying city itself. But nobody in the city was releasing profound meanings. Everything was normal in the city. Why was Xianxi in heaven and earth gathering like this? Spread out. Outside, the Asmodean Lord saw that Xianxi was still gathering. Fearing that something might go wrong, he ordered the warriors of the 4 alien races to disperse. If the Xianxi in heaven and earth were to explode, all the warriors nearby would be vaporized. The soldiers of the 4 races quickly dispersed, and the sky lit up. The experts and soldiers in the city immediately discovered the abnormality, and they raised their heads to look at the sky. What? Soon, the city was in an uproar. The Xianxi in heaven and earth was so thick that it was about to take shape. Looking from the distance, one could faintly see some clouds in the sky. Such a strange phenomenon was unheard of. Xianxi in heaven and earth was still gathering. The clouds in the sky were getting clearer. The clouds were semi-transparent, but they could be faintly seen. As the Xianxi in heaven and earth continued to gather, the clouds would become clearer. Xianxi in heaven and earth were turning into clouds. What was going on? Was this a powerful, profound meaning the Asmodean Lord was building? Was he going to crack the shield of the demon-slaying city in one move? Something is not right. Many people noticed that the great demon god was currently standing in the air outside the city. He was also looking at the clouds in the sky with a face full of bewilderment. His eyes were solemn. The Asmodean Lord did not do anything. Then who was making the clouds? Who could gather so much heaven and earth xian-qi? Who could have such amazing means to solidify the xian-qi of heaven and earth? As time went by, more and more xian-qi of heaven and earth gathered, and the clouds in the sky became very clear. Translucent clouds floated in the sky, looking extremely strange. If such a horrifying amount of xian-qi in heaven and earth were to explode all of a sudden, it would be a huge blow to the demon-slaying city. If something went wrong, the barrier would not be able to withstand such a powerful impact. If it exploded, not to mention the experts of the 4 races outside, just the powerful impact would be enough to kill most of the people in the city. The problem was, what could the people in the city do? Not to mention that they could not get out now. Even if they could, who would dare to disperse the xian-qi of heaven and earth? Could it be dispelled? Ji Mingtian and the others were waiting for Lu Li to come out, but now, nobody was paying attention to him. Ji Zhantian and the other patriarchs stared at the xian-qi clouds in the sky. They felt uneasy because the xian-qi was still gathering. At this moment, everyone felt as if a huge bomb had appeared in the sky. That bomb could explode at any moment, razing the city to the ground and tearing everyone apart. Step back a bit more. The Asmodean Lord was scared as well. He waved his hand to let the onlookers of the 4 alien races to step back. At the same time, he himself stepped back for thousands of feet. The xian-qi gathered above the demon-slaying city was too horrifying. Once it exploded, the impact would be horrifying and it could radiate to an area with a radius of 300 miles. A glint of excitement rose in the Asmodean Lord's eyes. If there was an explosion, the impact would be strong enough to break the shield of the demon-slaying city. Less than 10% of the millions of warriors in the city would survive, and all of them would be severely injured. By then, the Asmodean Lord could lead his army in and kill everyone. Phew, many people in the demon-slaying city were panicking. Their breaths were short. They stared at the xian-qi clouds in the sky, feeling ill at ease. At this moment, even Ji Zhantian was frightened. Once there was an explosion, the human race would be doomed. Why is this happening? Why is there so much xian-qi? The light in Ji Mingtian's eyes had faded away. All that was left was confusion. There was nothing strange in the city. Why would xian-qi in heaven and earth gather above the city for no reason? Buzzing, a moment later, the xian-qi clouds in the sky suddenly moved and gathered toward the center. A surge of horrifying energy spread out. The Asmodean Lord stepped back for another 2 miles. His eyes glowed even brighter. Is it going to explode? Great-grandfather 3 murmured. All of a sudden, he felt relieved. He was not the only one. That moment was a torment for many people. Finally, it was coming to an end. They did not have to worry anymore. What was to come would come. Swish, swish, tens of thousands of clouds gathered together in the sky. The energy was growing more and more horrifying. Many people in the city were trembling. Their faces were ghastly pale. Even Ji Zhantian felt hopeless. The energy in the sky was too horrifying. Once there was an explosion, everyone would die. Swish, swish. Then, something that shocked countless people happened. When the xian-qi clouds in the sky gathered together, a ray of colorful light suddenly shot out. That ray of colorful light shot down directly into a castle in the demon-slaying city. Swish, 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 many people followed the ray of light to the castle. They were all astonished because that castle was where Lu Li and Lu Renhuang were at. The ray of light did not disappear in a flash. It lasted for a long time. The xian-qi clouds in the sky were disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The large cloud was shrinking. It seemed the energy in the xian-qi clouds was pouring into the castle through the ray of colorful light. That was why the energy in the sky was disappearing quickly. How? Great-grandfather 3 murmured in astonishment. Jiang Tianshun and Patriarch of Law Enforcement were stunned as well. As for Ji Zhantian, Ji Mingtian, and Li Shang, they could not believe they had seen a ghost. At this moment, many people had come to the realization that the xian-qi in heaven and earth did not gather for no reason. It was triggered by someone, by Lu Li. They all sensed with psychic power that the ray of colorful light was connected to Lu Li's wicked bead. One man had triggered anomalies in heaven and earth. What has Lu Li done? How can he trigger the laws of heaven and earth and receive divine energy? Patriarch of law enforcement murmured. His eyes glowed. He seemed to be dozens of years younger. Ji Zhantian and the others had just conspired to deal with Lu Li. Lu Li had made such a scene. Ji Zhantian and the others must have lost their minds. P.S. I am in treatment today. I took some time at noon to write a chapter. I owe you. Chapter 837. Ji Zhantian felt like killing himself. Ji Mingtian and Lu Xuan had come up with a plan, and the plan was being carried out secretly. Now was the time to draw on the net. Little did he expect that Lu Li would make such a scene. Ji Zhantian would not believe that Lu Li's abilities had not improved by leaps and bounds with such rich Xian Qi and horrifying phenomena. At this moment, Ji Zhantian remembered something. In history, something like this happened in the Heaven Reverse universe, and it happened to Emperor of Heaven Reverse. When Emperor of Heaven Reverse became an immortal, the seas trembled. Xian Qi in heaven and earth gathered above the Heaven Reverse city, which was the current Samsara city. It was said that the entire Heaven Reverse universe could feel it. Tens of thousands of colorful clouds gathered above the Samsara city. Heaven and earth bestowed divine energy to help Emperor of Heaven Reverse build his immortal body. Many major families had records of this, but many people thought it was just a myth. Their ancestors tried to show off Emperor of Heaven Reverse's power and gave him a layer of mystery. They created some miracles on purpose. Even Ji Zhantian thought it was fake. But now, he was witnessing a miracle with his own eyes. He saw that heaven and earth were creating anomalies for one person and bestowing divine energy upon him. Has Lu Li become an immortal? Ji Zhantian trembled at this thought. Lu Li had created too many miracles. What he was witnessing now, Ji Zhantian would not be surprised if Lu Li came out later and became an immortal. Whether Lu Li had become an immortal or not was not the point. The point was, they were targeting Lu Li and Lu Li's abilities had improved. Would he kill them all when Lu Li came out? Ji Mingtian and Lu Xuan, who was hiding in the castle, looked at each other. Both of them were in a state of panic. Schemes and tricks were meaningless in the face of absolute power. If Lu Li's abilities were enhanced and he could defeat the other chosen warriors, all their efforts would be in vain. All their efforts would be in vain, and they would soon fall into a state of eternal damnation, with no way to reverse it. Good. Jiang Tianshun and Great-Grandfather 3 could not hide the grins on their faces. Lu Li's strength was their strength. If Lu Li could become the Grand Master and kill the Asmodean Lord, that would be the best. What is going on? Outside the city, the Asmodean Lord and the masters of the three alien races were disturbed. How could such a horrifying phenomenon be caused by a human? Heaven and earth bestowed the human race with divine power? Could it be that someone from a human clan had broken through to the true God realm? Wicked bead, Lu Li. The Asmodean Lord's psychic power was strong. He forced his way through the shield and the entrapment formation to lock onto the wicked bead floating in the castle. Divine energy was still pouring into the wicked bead. It meant that it was Lu Li who had triggered the phenomenon. What's the situation? A voice came from inside the wicked bead as well. Jiang Qiling, who was sitting with her legs crossed, felt the wicked bead trembling. Then a ray of seven-colored light shone down from her head and enveloped Lu Li. Out of instinct, Jiang Qiling was startled, but she didn't dare to move. She was relieved to see that Lu Li was calm and there was nothing wrong with him. Whoosh, little white, who was in the corner, suddenly flew up and landed on Lu Li's shoulder. Then it closed its eyes comfortably and enjoyed the seven-colored divine power. Jiang Qiling frowned. The divine energy was a gift from heaven and earth to Lu Li. Would little white be in trouble if it tried to take some by force? Also, it belonged to Lu Li. How dare a spiritual beast fight for it? Out of instinct, Jiang Qiling felt uncomfortable. But considering the relationship between Lu Li and Little White, and the fact that Luli didn't say anything. Jiang Qiling said nothing. She believed that Luli would acquiesce to Little White's actions, and he might even give some divine energy to Little White. Divine energy? Where is it coming from? Is it from Emperor of Heaven Reverse? Jiang Qiling was confused, but then she was delighted. Regardless of where the divine energy came from, it seemed that Luli could reach the human sovereign realm now. Otherwise, why would Luli be given divine energy when he was about to reach the human sovereign realm? The divine energy had pierced into the wicked bead. What? Of course, Luli could feel it. A stream of powerful energy was pouring into his body. The energy was pure and strong. As soon as it entered his body, it spread out and transformed his body. He was carving the line diagram on his bead of life at the most critical moment. He was about to succeed. Therefore, he used psychic power to check and made sure that the mysterious energy from the outside was not harmful to him. Then, he left it alone and focused on carving the line diagram. The line diagram he was carving was only a small one, a part of the larger one. Small as it was intricate. There were at least hundreds of thousands of lines and patterns in it. Luli could not afford to make any mistake in carving the line diagram. If any line or pattern were to go wrong, the carving would fail. Even though there were only dozens of lines and patterns left, Luli still spent a lot of time. After the time for 2 incense sticks to burn, Luli took a deep breath. The line diagram was finished. It was perfect. Now, it was time to see if it would collapse or not. Carving the profound meaning into the bead of life was not necessarily a success. It could collapse or not. Also, it was uncertain if the carving would work. He had done what he needed to do. Now, he just had to wait for the result. Swish, swish, divine energy was still flowing in. The divine energy that was spreading out was now concentrated in the bead of life. What? Luli used psychic power to check. He was taken aback. The divine energy was surging toward the line diagram. As the divine energy surged in, the lines and patterns in the line diagram began to glow, glistening. Luli had never heard of this, but there was nothing he could do at the moment. The divine energy was not under his control. He had to look on and wait for the final result. Divine energy was pouring in. When all the lines and patterns in the line diagram were glowing, Luli felt the bead of life trembled. Then, the bead began to glow. The silver dragon mark began to wander around joyfully. At that moment, Luli suddenly felt he had a connection with heaven and earth. It was as if he could control the space nearby. It was a wonderful feeling. He felt he had become one with heaven and earth, a part of heaven and earth. Okay, I have reached the human sovereign realm. Luli opened his eyes after a while. He shouted, "Force field, activate." Buzzing, space trembled. A half-transparent ripple spread out. The space was frozen at once. The force field was activated. Force field was the symbol of the human sovereign realm. It represented the recognition and acceptance of the warrior by the laws of heaven and earth. From this day on, Luli had a formal connection with heaven and earth. Finally, he could borrow the force in heaven and earth. The divine energy above Luli's head was gone. There was no more divine energy coming in. Jiang Qiling's eyes glowed. She moved away from Luli's force field and shouted, "Luli, you have reached the human sovereign realm? That is wonderful." Luli smiled. He hugged Jiang Qiling, who was running at him. Then he asked with surprise, "Qiling, what happened? How come I felt some divine energy entering my body?" "You're asking me? That is what I want to ask you." Jiang Qiling rolled her eyes and said speechlessly, "Luli, you are just reaching the human sovereign realm. How come you made such a scene? If you reach the earth immortal realm, or even a chosen warrior, will the entire heaven reverse universe be shaken?" Chapter 838. Luli had no idea why there was such a disturbance. All he did was carve a line diagram. How could there be divine energy? Where did it come from? Was it from a statue of Emperor of Heaven Reverse? Out of instinct, Luli used psychic power to check. Soon, he raised his eyebrows. He realized something was wrong. Something was not right. Lu Renwang and the others were gathered together. There was a blood-red shield outside the castle. Ji Zhantian and Patriarch of Law Enforcement were standing on the shield. They all had different expressions. Something big must have happened. Outside the city, warriors of the 4 alien races had stepped back. The statue of Emperor of Heaven Reverse did not show any reaction. What Luli felt was the expressions of many warriors in the city. Surprise, fear, joy, terror. There were all kinds of expressions. Almost everyone in the city was paying attention to what was going on. Luli would never believe that nothing had happened in the city. He had an idea. The wicked bee glowed and took in Lu Renhuang and the others. Well, Ji Zhantian and the others were taken aback. Luli did not do anything before. Now, he suddenly took in Lu Renhuang and the others. Clearly, Luli was making a breakthrough. Now, the anomaly in heaven and earth had disappeared. Luli had succeeded. Only then did he take Lu Renhuang and the others back to the wicked bee to ask about what had happened. What did Luli learn? I hope it is not too powerful. Ji Zhantian and the others prayed that Luli did not have a breakthrough. Otherwise, what awaited them would be a nightmare. Ji Mengtian and Lu Xuan looked at each other again. They even had the urge to run away. However, the alien races were everywhere. Where could they go? The world was vast. Where could they go? Inside the wicked bead, after Uncle Nine of the June family told the story, Luli was filled with murderous intent. So was Jiang Qiling. Luli did not do anything to Ji Mengtian and the others. Were they up to something again? The human race was in such a dire state. How could they fight among themselves? Killing them would not be enough to appease their anger. Lu Renhuang glanced at Luli. Making sure that he had just reached the human sovereign realm, Lu Renhuang asked, "If you are not sure, don't do anything rash. Otherwise, your great-grandpa and the others will be implicated." Wait a moment. Luli thought about it and said. Then he closed his eyes and began to inspect his body. The June family's 9th brother said that he had triggered the heaven and earth vision, and was bestowed with divine power. This meant that he must have made a great breakthrough in some way. He must examine himself to see if his abilities had improved after he reached the human sovereign realm. The divine energy is so strong. My body is growing. My body is transforming. My body is transforming. It is the divine energy. Luli checked his body. He noticed that the divine energy was still transforming his body. His physical body was improving at a terrifying speed. At this moment, with the strength of his physical body, the attacks of ordinary Earth immortals would not be able to kill him. Physical strength did not mean much. It would not help Li's overall abilities. He turned his attention to his bead of life. It was the line diagram that was engraved in the bead of life that had triggered the phenomenon. Before he inscribed the line diagram, there were no problems. Everything was normal. It was only when he was inscribing the line diagram that a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky. Also, when heaven and earth bestowed divine energy, the divine energy entered the bead of life and modified and enhanced the line diagram. Therefore, the problem must be in the line diagram that was engraved in the bead of life. Luli used psychic power to study the line diagram. In the time for one incense stick to burn, he noticed something. This diagram was strange. Previously, the diagram that he studied was a dead diagram. Now, the line diagram that was enhanced by divine energy was more like a living diagram. The diagram could move. When Luli focused his psychic power on the diagram, it began to move slowly. The lines were moving and the patterns were shaking and moving. It was as if the diagram was composed of countless flowers, birds, fishes, and insects. At first, those flowers, birds, fishes, and insects were reliefs. Now they were alive, moving and moving. This diagram, this trajectory, this pattern, the more Luli looked at it, the more surprised he was. There was something familiar in the diagram, as if he had seen it somewhere before. Feather wind. Luli's heart skipped a beat. He finally figured it out. When the lines and patterns moved, they were like pieces of feather wind dancing in the air. No wonder he found it so familiar. Is this a demonstration of feather wind? Is this the diagram of feather wind? Luli understood. Out of instinct, he began to simulate according to the line diagram. He simulated it step by step in his mind and verified it over and over again. He didn't spend too much time. After just half an hour, he opened his eyes and revealed a smile. He said happily, I knew it, I knew it. This line diagram is good stuff, the best in the world. Jiang Qiling was delighted. Jiang Qiling was overjoyed. She didn't know what Luli had learned, but judging from his expression, he must have gained something. Luli must have struck it rich this time. She felt honored that her man was so powerful. Congratulations, young Master Lu. Uncle Nine of the June family and the others were sensible enough to congratulate him. As far as they could tell, Luli must have undergone a tremendous transformation since he had touched heaven and earth. Otherwise, he wouldn't have caused such a stir. Luli, what do you think? Lu Renhuang was still worried. After all, Ji Zhantian was a chosen warrior. Apart from Lu Li, who could use the wicked bead, no other human could defeat Ji Zhantian. If Lu Li were to act rashly, he could get many people killed. It's okay now. Lu Li nodded to Lu Renhuang seriously and said, Father, don't worry. I can deal with Ji Zhantian easily. I can even defeat the 4 alien races. What? Jiang Qiling and Lu Renhuang looked at each other in surprise. The Asmodean Lord had such a powerful skill. How could Lu Li solve it? He had only reached the human sovereign realm. Even if he had learned a 9th rank profound meaning, his abilities shouldn't be as strong as a chosen warrior, right? Lu Li didn't explain. He just smiled and said, Stay here. I will go out for a bit. I will take care of everything soon. Lu Renhuang and Jiang Qiling stood up, but Lu Li didn't give them a chance to talk. He dashed to the castle outside. Only less than an hour had passed, but to those outside, it felt like years had passed. The wicked bead glowed, and Lu Li came out. Many who had their psychic power locked on the wicked bead were cheered up. Finally, Lu Li was out. However, Ji Zhantian and the others were relieved to see that Lu Li had only reached the human sovereign realm. Jiang Tianshun and Great-Grandfather 3 were disappointed. Only Patriarch of Law Enforcement remained calm. Lu Li grabbed the wicked bead and strode out. Outside the castle, he looked at the blood-red shield and then at Ji Zhantian and the others in the sky. Finally, he turned to Ji Mengtian and put on a mocking smile. He used Xian energy to amplify his voice and said loudly, Ji Mengtian, I thought I could let you live a little longer. If you could rebuild your soul, I could even let you go. However, you refused to take the path to heaven and insisted on barging into hell. I can only ruthlessly destroy the flower and send you and your entire Ji family to the netherworld. Everyone who participated in this matter must die. P.S. I will go back to normal when I get home tomorrow and start paying off the debt. Chapter 839. Looking into Lu Li's cold eyes, Ji Mengtian began to panic. That being said, Lu Li was only at the human sovereign realm. No matter how powerful a human sovereign realm warrior was, it would be impressive if he could kill an Earth immortal realm warrior. It was not like he could kill Ji Zhantian 2 realms above him. What was more, there was the entrapment formation. On this thought, Ji Mengtian felt a bit more confident. She said with a straight face, Lu Li, we are not trying to target you. This is the truth. This is the decision of the Hall of Patriarchs, not my personal opinion. I hope you can cooperate. Don't worry, we will not make things difficult for you. Ha, 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 Lu Li threw his head back and laughed. What he hated the most was those who used righteousness to oppress others. They were prostitutes, and yet they still wanted to put up a plaque. There was no reason in this world. Strength was the law. If the demon-slaying hall and Ji Zhantian believed that strength was the strongest, then they could just kill Lu Li. Why would they come up with such a high-sounding reason? It was disgusting. Lu Li glared at Patriarch Ji Zhantian and said coldly, Decision of the Hall of Patriarchs? So, all the patriarchs are conspiring to kill me? The patriarchs shivered under Lu Li's stare. Many of them dared not to look at Lu Li. Only Ji Zhantian said with a straight face, Lu Li, nobody is plotting against you. We just want you to hand over the wicked bead. As long as you do so, the Asmodean Lord will retreat at once. The demon-slaying hall will grant you the position of an honorary patriarch. From now on, anyone that dares to hurt you will be the enemy of the entire demon-slaying hall. Ha ha ha. Luli laughed mockingly. He didn't want to argue anymore. He stared at Ji Zhantian and said, Deputy Master, as long as you are dead, I will help the human race out from this crisis. For the sake of the human race, you should go to hell. I will not be in the mood to help the human race out from this crisis. With that said, Luli wasted no more time. He waved his hands and began to make hand seals in midair. The bead of life came out from his abdomen and it was spinning in his hands. Buzzing, the bead of life glowed, and so did the silver dragon mark. The line diagram inside was glowing as well. The lines and patterns were moving around. After the appearance of the bead of life, the xianqi of heaven and earth in all directions began to fluctuate and converge toward the bead of life, being absorbed by it. Then gusts of wind came out from his bead of life. Those gusts of wind were shaped. They were like feathers. Feather wind came out ceaselessly, hovering around Luli. More and more of them appeared. Every second, the bead of life could generate endless feather wind. Soon, he was surrounded by feather wind. The castle was filled with feather wind. The god-trapping formation was filled with feather wind. What is this? In midair, many people frowned. What was Luli doing with these things? It didn't seem to have much attack power. Could he use this feather-like wind to break the god-trapping formation? Luli kept a straight face. The bead of life was spinning in his hand, gathering feather wind. All the feather wind in the wicked bead was released as well. He could generate feather wind at any time. It was pointless to keep the feather wind in the wicked bead. After the time for one incense stick to burn, the entire entrapment formation was filled with feather wind. Looking at the blood-red formation, Luli sneered, waved his hand, and said, Break, chi-chi. The endless feather wind danced wildly and began to strike at the god-trapping formation. The blood-red formation began to glow and shake violently. Well, Jiang Tianshun and Great-Grandfather Three's eyes glowed. Ji Zhantian, Ji Mingtian, and the others were disappointed. The attack was too strong. The god-trapping formation would not last long. While gathering more feather wind, Luli snorted. He waved his hand. Instead of controlling the feather wind to charge at the formation, he had the feather wind form into dragons of wind that danced around him. 1, 10, 100, 1,000 more and more dragons of wind were gathering around Luli. The dragons of wind were hovering and whistling in the god-trapping formation. There was a castle in the formation. However, as the dragons of wind passed by, the castle was torn into pieces. Hiss, hiss, many people were gasping. Some were trembling. Looking at Luli, who was standing in the middle of the god-trapping formation, surrounded by dragons of wind, they felt they were looking at a demon. Go! When there were more than 1,000 dragons of wind, Luli waved his hand. Over 1,000 dragons of wind flew to all sides and struck at the god-trapping formation at the same time. Boom! The formation was blasted apart by a strong force. Luli stepped on his bead of life and leaped up. Over 1,000 dragons of wind were hovering around him. Those dragons of wind were made of feather wind. Therefore, they were tangible. The visual impact was strong, and it would be a great shock to the soul. The bead of life was still spinning, generating more feather wind. With Luli as the center, an area with a radius of 500 feet was filled with feather wind. Over 1,000 dragons of wind were hovering around him. It was a breathtaking sight. Luli stood in the sky like a god. Turning to Patriarch of Law Enforcement, he said, Patriarch of Law Enforcement, those who are not involved, step to the side. Noticing the killing intent in Luli's eyes, Patriarch of Law Enforcement shouted at once, Luli, do not do anything rash. We could talk things out. Ji Zhantian took out a sword and said, Luli, we can talk things out. If you do something rash, nobody will be able to protect you. The originator artifact. Jiang Tianshuan's great-grandfather 3 yelled in surprise. Jiang Tianshun looked at Luli and said, Luli, That is the originator artifact. It has the power of a relic. Do not do anything rash. Is a relic powerful? I have one as well. The wicked bead appeared in Lu Li's hand. He stared at the originator artifact, but he was not worried. The originator artifact gave him a horrifying feeling. That being said, it cannot be a relic. At the very least, it could not crack his wicked bead. Go! Lu Li waved his hand and controlled hundreds of dragons of wind to whooshing over. He had made up his mind to kill. Today he would not stop until he bathed the demon-slaying city in blood. Spread out, seeing the hundreds of dragons of wind whooshing over, Ji Zhantian's pupils contracted in fear. He shouted. Being cautious himself, he stepped back at once. The patriarchs behind him spread out. Fall back. Seeing that Lu Li had taken action, Patriarch of Law Enforcement had no other choice but to lead his people to the other side. Ji Mengtian stepped back quickly, but she and the other patriarchs were not fast. The dragons of wind could be as fast as the peak of the earth immortal realm. They whooshed over and enveloped everyone. Defend. Many people were frightened. They thought that the dragons of wind contained powerful energy that could cause a violent explosion and impact. Therefore, many people resorted to various means of defense at once. However, when the dragons of wind enveloped them, there was no explosion. Someone even tried to attack the dragons of wind. When the two types of energy collided, there was no explosion. The dragons of wind came over like a gentle breeze. Ji Mengtian was the first to let out a miserable cry. She held her head and rolled around in the air. Blood oozed out from her ears, nose, and eyes. Her facial muscles were twisted. The pretty girl had turned into a ferocious ghost. No, this is a soul attack. The patriarchs cried out in alarm. Many held their heads and rolled around in the air, howling in pain. Blood flowed out from their eyes, ears, noses, and mouths. It was a horrible sight. Lu Li, you are courting death. Chapter 840. Anomalies in Heaven and Earth, bestowing divine energy. Ji Zhantian was frightened. He had thought that Lu Li possessed the abilities and skills of an immortal. Now that he saw that it was just a soul attack, Ji Zhantian was reassured. Ji Zhantian's soul was protected by powerful artifacts. His soul was strong, and he had the originator artifact. Now that Lu Li had come out from the wicked bead, it was a good chance for Ji Zhantian. He poured Xian energy into the originator artifact. The sword glowed and emitted a horrifying energy. The sword was as strong as an ancient ferocious beast. The patriarchs nearby felt suffocated. Nice sword. Ji Zhantian took a look. The sword was glowing and filled with surging energy. His confidence was boosted. He shouted, Lu Li, go to hell. He wielded the sword and hacked at Lu Li. A ray of light came out from the originator artifact. Then, that ray of light condensed into a golden shadow. A beast came out from the sword and dashed toward Lu Li, roaring. Swish! The beast was over 1,000 feet in size. Everywhere it passed, space would be torn apart. Even Patriarch of Law Enforcement felt suffocated by the energy of the beast. The originator artifact was horrifying. Good timing, Lu Li sneered, but he did not go back into the wicked bead at once. He waved his hand, and several dragons of wind whooshed out. In midair, another silver dragon came into being. This dragon was over 1,000 feet long. Though it did not have a strong energy, its size alone was suffocating. The beast and the silver dragon bumped into each other. There was no explosion as people had imagined. The silver dragon was devoured by the beast. Or rather, the energy in the silver dragon was eliminated by the beast. That being said, the beast became transparent as well. The horrifying energy was gone. Clearly, the beast had consumed a great deal of energy. Again, Lu Li waved his hand. Several dragons of wind whooshed out and formed a huge silver dragon. This time, the silver dragon and the beast collided. The beast disappeared and the silver dragon whooshed on. Buzzing, Lu Li's bead of life was spinning and glowing. Feather wind kept coming out. He had mastered how to generate feather wind. For him, feather wind was almost endless. This was the source of Lu Li's confidence. He did not have what it took to enter the wicked bead. With the endless feather wind, he could defend and attack at will. From that day on, no Earth Immortal Realm warriors could hurt him, and he was not afraid of the average semi-god realm warriors. Ji Zhantian refused to give in. He made several moves. Every time, a shadow of a beast would come out and attack Lu Li from all sides. Humph, Lu Li snorted. He generated more and more silver dragons and charged at the beasts, wiping out the energy in the beasts. Ji Zhantian wanted to attack him from afar, but he could not inflict any harm on him. There were many soldiers in the city below, and all the courtyard were filled with people. The soldiers were trembling with fear and unease. The attacks from above were simply too terrifying. Just a casual shockwave would cause the deaths of many people below. Fortunately, Ji Zhantian and Lu Li had restrained themselves. They did not extend their attacks to the ground. After several rounds of attacks, Ji Zhantian realized that he could not inflict any harm on Lu Li. A glint of determination rose in his eyes. He decided to take the risk. All of a sudden, he flew up to the sky, almost touching the shield. He was so fast that he reached the sky in a flash. Then, he fell down with his head down and his feet up. Swish, swish, he spun around quickly. His sword shook and a huge swirl came into being. Space was trembling, causing huge ripples. Those ripples were not without rules. Rather, they contained a strange pattern. Lu Li, this is an 8th rank profound meaning related to space. Be careful. Lu Li suddenly heard a message. It was Patriarch of Law Enforcement's secret skill. Lu Li could tell that something was wrong with the space even without Patriarch of Law Enforcement's warning. The ripples in space were abnormal. It seemed that space could be sealed. Dragons of wind, go! Lu Li waved his hand. Dozens of dragons of wind flew toward Ji Zhantian from 3 directions. As the dragons of wind moved, Lu Li realized something was wrong. Space was indeed sealed. The dozens of dragons of wind slowed down as if they were moving in slow motion. Their speed was reduced by tens of thousands of times. So what? Lu Li did not mind at all. He waved his hand and generated more dragons of wind to surround himself, one after another. He condensed the 5 wind dragons around him into a huge silver dragon. He condensed a total of 5 large silver dragons, forming 5 defensive circles. In addition to the outer layers of defense, Ji Zhantian would have to break through at least 10 dragons of wind if he wanted to break in. Swish! Ji Zhantian was fast. He had reached the outermost layer of defense. He was spinning at a high speed, head down and feet up. The originator artifact paved the way. Ji Zhantian was like a drill with horrifying penetrating force. The originator artifact was shaking and shaking. The space in front of Ji Zhantian was torn apart. Cracks in space appeared. At the same time, the originator artifact was trembling, creating ripples in space that shook away the dragons of wind. The dragons of wind hovered around as per Lu Li's order. However, they were knocked away by Ji Zhantian. The dragons of wind could not stop Ji Zhantian. Whoosh! In the time for 3 breaths, Ji Zhantian had broken through 5 layers of defense. He was only 200 feet away from Lu Li. His eyes glowed. When he could break through the last 5 dragons of wind, he could reach Lu Li and cut him in half. Keep going. Ji Zhantian did not stop. He swung the originator artifact and dashed on like a mad dragon. The sword in his hand glowed. As he shook it, a surge of horrifying energy spread out from the originator artifact. Swish! To Ji Zhantian's delight, the huge silver dragon in front of him was shattered into gusts of feather wind after the ripples in space reached it. Average feather wind had no effect on Ji Zhantian. It could not do much harm to his soul. Ha ha ha! Ji Zhantian laughed out loud. He sped up. The sword in his hand glistened. Staring at Lu Li, he shouted, Lu Li, what else do you have? Use them all. If not, then go to hell. Swish! Another silver dragon was shattered. Ji Zhantian was only 70 to 80 feet away from Lu Li. If Lu Li did not go back into the wicked bead or use other means, In the time for a few breaths, he would be killed by the Originator artifact. The Originator artifact was not a relic, but it was as powerful as a relic. This sword was once used by Emperor of Heaven Reverse, and there was divine energy left by Emperor of Heaven Reverse in it. If Lu Li was hit, not even a quasi-relic could save him. Great-grandfather 3 and Jiang Tianshun were worried. They were wondering why Lu Li did not go back into the Wicked Bead. Was the space Lu Li was in sealed off, and he cannot go in? He is doomed. Patriarch of Law Enforcement sighed. Jiang Tianshun was taken aback. He shouted, Patriarch of Law Enforcement, what did you say? Do you think Lu Li is doomed? Chapter 841. Before Patriarch of Law Enforcement could finish his words, the scene in the sky suddenly changed. Lu Li waved his hands. The dragons of wind around him collapsed. Then, they turned into feather wind and swarmed toward Ji Zhantian. Ji Zhantian's space profound meaning did have the ability to seal space and slow down a warrior's attacks. That being said, it did not affect the average feather wind. The speed of the feather wind was not affected at all. Ji Zhantian, you are asking for death. Lu Li's mocking voice resounded across the city. He waved his hands and shouted, Dragons of wind, gather! The formation and collapse of dragons of wind were all within Lu Li's control. At the moment, so much feather wind was gathered around Ji Zhantian. Lu Li waved his hand. The feather wind came together and formed many huge dragons of wind. The dragons of wind then merged into a huge silver dragon. Ow! When the feather wind gathered around him, Ji Zhantian had a feeling that something was wrong. Lu Li had let him in on purpose. At that moment, Ji Zhantian hesitated for a second. Should he advance or retreat? If he advanced, he might lose his life. If he retreated, where could he go? In a fight of this level, 1 second was enough to decide life or death. Ji Zhantian hesitated for a second. It was too late for him to advance or retreat. When the dragons of wind surrounded him, he did not feel anything. But as the silver dragons took shape, he felt a piercing pain in his soul. The powerful soul attacks contained in the feather wind were attacking his core of soul. Retreat! Ji Zhantian panicked. He could feel the powerful soul attacks coming from all sides. He tried his best not to howl in pain. He sped up to the top of his speed, trying to run away. You want to run now? It's too late, Lu Li sneered. He waved his hand. Several silver dragons came into being and surrounded Ji Zhantian. The horrifying soul attacks began to invade Ji Zhantian's core of soul. Hold on. Ji Zhantian bit his teeth. He took out a pellet and threw it into his mouth. His eyes were bloodshot and veins were popping out on his face. He swung the Originator artifact and hacked at Lu Li, trying to distract Lu Li so that he could escape. Whoosh! This time, it didn't shoot out a strange head phantom. Instead, it shot out a sword chi. The sword chi was not very powerful, but it was fast. In an instant, it was about to reach Lu Li's face. Wicked bead. A bead appeared in Lu Li's hand. It enlarged and stood in front of him. He was wearing a quasi-relic armor, and his physical body was strong. Still, he could not afford to be careless when facing the sword energy from the Originator artifact. Bang! The ray of sword energy landed on the wicked bead. Nothing happened. The wicked bead merely glowed for a moment before everything went back to normal. Lu Li kept an eye on Ji Zhantian with psychic power. He generated more and more silver dragons to surround him. Lu Li did not believe that Ji Zhantian's soul was that strong. Could it block the endless soul attacks? Ji Zhantian let out a miserable cry. His face was twisted. He wielded the Originator artifact in a frenzy. He began to release shadows of beasts, trying to disperse the silver dragons around him. This was the only way he could escape. The silhouettes of exotic beasts condensed one after another, and indeed, they were able to neutralize a portion of the silver dragon's energy. Some of the silver dragon's soul attacks were immediately weakened. Lu Li did not mind at all. He smiled. He controlled the feather wind to gather over. Wind dragons were generated, and then silver dragons were formed. Lu Li wanted to see if Ji Zhantian could destroy faster or Lu Li could create faster. Ji Zhantian was under constant soul attacks. At first, he was still releasing shadows of exotic beasts. But towards the end, his speed was slowing down. Using the originator artifact required a lot of mental energy. At the moment, Ji Zhantian's soul was under great attack. Naturally, it was strenuous for him to use the originator artifact. Lu Li, on the other hand, was not affected at all. Therefore, he could produce more and more silver dragons. As time went by, more and more silver dragons gathered around Ji Zhantian. Ji Zhantian once again cried out in pain. He held his head and rolled around in midair. His soul was strong, but he could not stand it anymore. The pain in the soul was the most unbearable. Ji Zhantian was not a god. Oh no! Li Shang and the others looked at each other. Their hearts were weighed down. Not even Ji Zhantian could defeat Lu Li. Who else in the entire human race could? Given Lu Li's cold-blooded character, they would all die. Let's do it together. Li Shang and the other patriarchs looked at each other. They were ready to risk their lives. If they did not take action now, it would be their turn to die after Lu Li killed Ji Zhantian. Whoosh, 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 Li Shang and 7 or 8 patriarchs dashed out toward Lu Li from all sides. Some other patriarchs hesitated for a moment before they took action as well. Another 20 or so patriarchs were itching to take action as well. You still don't understand? Patriarch of Law Enforcement glared at the 20 or so patriarchs and shouted, "Do you all have a death wish? Do you all want your families to die? The human race is in such a state. How can you still fight among yourselves?" The 20 or so patriarchs were not loyal to Ji Zhantian. They belonged to the middle. They were afraid that Lu Li would punish them, which was why they were hesitating. After being scolded by Patriarch of Law Enforcement, all of them were ashamed. One of them made up his mind and said, Fine. We admit our mistakes and admit our guilt. We will do whatever Lu Li wants to punish us after this." Since the 20 or so patriarchs did not take action, the other patriarchs would not either. Only Li Shang and more than a dozen Earth Immortal Realm warriors dashed toward Lu Li like crazy. They launched all kinds of attacks at Lu Li. "Since you want to die, I will grant you your wish." Lu Li stood in midair, looking on coldly. He waved his hands, and some dragons of wind whooshed toward the patriarchs around him. The souls of Earth Immortal Realm warriors were too weak. In the old days, the average dragons of wind were enough to defeat Uncle Nine of the June family and the others. Needless to say, as soon as the dragons of wind entangled the patriarchs, they all hugged their heads and howled. Little White. Lu Li's wicked bead glowed as Little White came out. Lu Li said to the patriarchs and Little White that were rolling around in midair, "Bite them all to death." Squeak, squeak, Little White screamed in excitement and dashed on in a blur. At first, Lu Li was worried that Little White would be attacked by the feather wind, so he deliberately moved the feather wind away. However, Little White was too fast. It pierced through one of the dragons of wind and was not affected at all. Little White dashed to Li Shang's neck. Little White bit off Li Shang's neck, and his head was cut off. Boom! Li Shang's headless body fell to the ground at the plaza. A teleportation formation was cracked. Blood was still gushing out from Li Shang's neck. It was a ghastly sight. The entire city was silent. Li Shang was the third most powerful warrior of the demon-slaying hall, second only to Ji Zhantian and Patriarch of Law Enforcement. Today, he was killed in public. Boom, 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 Little White would move around. Every time it did so, a headless body would fall to the ground. As more patriarchs died, the city became quieter and quieter. P.S. I am home now. Normal updates will resume. Tomorrow, I will figure out how much I owe and pay it back. Chapter 842. The more than a dozen patriarchs were all famous warriors. Every stomp of their feet could shake the great land. But now, they had all turned into cold corpses, falling in front of the people on the ground. Many of those patriarchs were veterans of the human race, forefathers of many families. The death of any one of them was a great loss for the human race. But now, more than a dozen had died. Cruel. Many people stared at the young man in a cyan robe in midair. They felt a chill. Luli was as cruel and merciless as the rumors said. Of course, there were also people who felt satisfied. Luli did not cause trouble for the demon-slaying hall. Instead, he tried his best to help the demon-slaying hall against the 4 alien races. Now, Ji Zhantian was trying to murder Luli. It served him right to be killed. The 20 or so patriarchs that were stopped by Patriarch of Law Enforcement felt lucky. If they had gone up, they would have become cold corpses like Li Shang and the others. Ji Zhantian was still howling in pain and rolling around in midair. Luli did not let Little White rush over recklessly. What if Ji Zhantian was just putting on a show? Little White, strong as it was, could not stand the originator artifact. Luli kept on gathering feather wind over. Silver dragons came out and surrounded Ji Zhantian. At the same time, the wicked bee glowed. Uncle Nine of the June family came out. Luli ordered, "Attack him from a distance." Okay. Uncle Nine of the June family took out a bow. He pulled a string and shot out arrows. Rays of white light kept flying out, aiming at Ji Zhantian's vital parts. All of a sudden, Ji Zhantian came back to his senses. He swung the originator artifact several times and smashed all the white arrows. Luli felt lucky that he did not let Little White go. Otherwise, it would bode ill rather than well. Go on. Luli ordered Uncle Nine of the June family, while he gathered more feather wind over there, forming dozens of defense circles to prevent Ji Zhantian from escaping. Whoosh, 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 Uncle Nine of the June family kept on attacking. Ji Zhantian tried his best to fight back. However, his soul was being attacked constantly. His soul was getting more and more injured. Under such circumstances, Ji Zhantian could not hold on much longer. Bang, he was hit by a long arrow. Although he was wearing a semi-divine armor, the impact caused a mouthful of blood to gush up his throat. He turned to Luli. Sensing the killing intent in Luli's eyes, he could not stand it anymore. He couldn't escape anymore. Luli would never let him go if he begged for mercy. As the Grand Master of the Demon-Slaying Hall, he had the right to know a secret that only the Grand Master could know. Luli, you have colluded with alien races and slaughtered your own. You are unpardonable. I will have to ask Emperor of Heaven Reverse to put you down. Ji Zhantian bellowed. He took out a jade talisman and crushed it. At the same time, he shot out a ray of light into the statue of Emperor of Heaven Reverse. The statue of Emperor of Heaven Reverse lit up at once. The book emitted a radiance. The characters leaped up from the book and hovered in the air. A mysterious and powerful force enveloped the entire demon-slaying city. Well, the entire city was shocked. Many people even dropped to one knee and knelt to the statue of Emperor of Heaven Reverse. Many were taken aback. Ji Zhantian said he was going to ask Emperor of Heaven Reverse for help. Could Emperor of Heaven Reverse come down from the divinity? Oh no. Patriarch of Law Enforcement's expressions changed. Apart from the Grand Master of the Demon-Slaying Hall, he was the only one who knew one thing. Every generation of Grand Masters of the Demon-Slaying Hall could ask for help from Emperor of Heaven Reverse. Of course, unless the human race was at a critical juncture, Emperor of Heaven Reverse would kill the Grand Master. What was more, it was not Emperor of Heaven Reverse himself who came to the mortal world. It was just an avatar. Even so, once an avatar of Emperor of Heaven Reverse came down, Luli would not stand a chance. The avatar of Emperor of Heaven Reverse was invited by the Grand Master. Naturally, the avatar would listen to the Grand Master of the Demon-Slaying Hall. After all, the Grand Master represented the orthodoxy. Luli's expressions changed. How could Ji Zhantian ask for help from Emperor of Heaven Reverse? But Luli did not stop. He continued to gather the silver dragons, and Uncle Nine of the June family continued to attack Ji Zhantian. Buzzing, the book was glowing brighter, and that mysterious energy was growing stronger. The characters on the book were jumping around in the air. Then, according to a certain pattern, they came together and formed a pair of eyes. The eyes. Looking at the eyes formed by the characters in the air, many people were scared out of their wits. They dropped to their knees and prostrated themselves on the ground. "Greetings, your majesty." Patriarch of Law Enforcement and the others took a look at the eyes. They were shocked as well. They dropped to their knees in midair. More and more people dropped to their knees, including the patriarchs. Luli looked up. When he saw the eyes, he was shocked. What kind of eyes were they? At this moment, when Lu Li and the others looked at the pair of eyes, they felt as if they were children looking into the eyes of a giant lion. Cold, cruel, powerful, cold-blooded, without a trace of emotion. This was the feeling the pair of eyes gave Lu Li. They were just a pair of illusory eyes, but they made Lu Li feel powerless. It was as if the owner of the eyes could crush Lu Li with one thought. Emperor of Heaven Reverse, a mighty warrior in the divinity. Today, Lu Li finally witnessed the power of an immortal. Just an avatar could make all the powerful warriors of the Heaven Reverse universe feel they were puny. This was the power of an immortal, omnipotent, and frightening. Lu Li stopped controlling the Featherwind. He dropped to one knee with Uncle Nine of the June family. In front of such a mighty warrior, anyone would have to lower their heads. Such a powerful warrior deserved respect. Lu Li stopped controlling the Featherwind. The silver dragons stopped moving, and so did the Featherwind. Ji Zhantian's soul was no longer under attack. He exhaled, opened his eyes, dropped to one knee, and said, "Greetings, Emperor of Heaven Reverse. I, Grand Master of the Demon-Slaying Hall, Ji Zhantian. If you are alarmed, I will risk my life." What? Outside the city, the Asmodean Lord, who was watching from the distance, felt a chill when he saw Emperor of Heaven Reverse's eyes. He waved his hand to order the 4 alien races to step back while he quietly vanished into the air. The city was in dead silence. Nobody dared to make any noise. No one dared to look into the eyes. They had to wait for Emperor of Heaven Reverse's instruction. What is it? After the time for one incense stick to burn, a hoarse voice finally came from a city. Nobody could tell where the voice came from, but it was clearly heard by everyone. Ji Zhantian was delighted. He stood up and looked at the eyes in the sky. Bowing again, he said, "Emperor, the 4 alien races are pressing down on us. They have breached 3 cities in a row. The human warriors I brought with me are struggling. We have finally reached an agreement with the Asmodean Lord, exchanging the wicked bead for the retreat of the 4 alien races. But this human disciple, Lu Li, does not care about the greater good of the human race. Not only did he hurt his own brothers, but he also killed patriarchs of the Demon-Slaying Hall. He even tried to kill me. Emperor, we are useless. We are no match for this demon. I can only ask you to take action to stop the traitor and help the human race survive this disaster." Chapter 843. With that said, Emperor of Heaven Reverse fell into silence. There were hundreds of people in the city, but no one dared to make a sound. Many of them were trembling. Perhaps it was because of nervousness or fear. Ji Mengtian, Yang Xian, Lu Xuan, and the others were excited. How could Ji Zhantian ask Emperor of Heaven Reverse to help? That was an immortal. One thought from an immortal could turn Lu Li into ashes. If Emperor of Heaven Reverse were to take action, the Asmodean Lord could be killed easily. Lu Li knelt in silence. He did not say anything to defend himself. He believed that Emperor of Heaven Reverse was wise and would not believe in one person's one-sided words. He was right. After a moment, that hoarse voice came again. "Lu Li, what do you have to say for yourself?" Patriarch of Law Enforcement and the others were surprised. Jiang Tianshun and Great-Grandfather 3 looked at each other. Both were delighted. Why did Emperor of Heaven Reverse ask such a question? It seemed that he was familiar with Lu Li. On second thought, they understood. The first time Lu Li and Jiang Qiling came to the demon-slaying city, the statue of Emperor of Heaven Reverse glowed. Jiang Qiling was even granted divine energy. Then Lu Li imprisoned and tortured Lu Xuan, Ji Mengtian, and the others in the small battlefield. When Deputy Grand Master wanted to kill Lu Li, the statue of Emperor of Heaven Reverse glowed again. That was why Xing Mu came to Lu Li's rescue. Many people were speculating that Xing Mu saved Lu Li because Emperor of Heaven Reverse sent down a decree. Lu Li felt a sense of kinship when he heard Emperor of Heaven Reverse's question. His animal tooth pendant was a legacy of Emperor of Heaven Reverse. In other words, his legacy came from Emperor of Heaven Reverse. He thought about it for a while, looked up at the pair of eyes, bowed, and said, "I, Lu Li, have a clear conscience." "Good." This time, Emperor of Heaven Reverse's voice came quickly. "A clear conscience is a good word. Lu Li, from today on, you will be the Grand Master of the Demon-Slaying Hall. You are the one who started the crisis of the 4 alien races. You must solve it. If you cannot, then commit suicide to apologize to the world. In the future, when you achieve something, come to me at the Infinity Mountain. I will accept you as my protege." Buzzing, with that said, the eyes disappeared. The scriptures returned to the book. The statue of Emperor of Heaven Reverse quieted down. Wow, at first, there was a strange silence in the city. Then, the entire city burst into an uproar. Emperor of Heaven Reverse had appointed Lu Li as the Grand Master of the Demon-Slaying Hall. In other words, he was on Lu Li's side. This. Ji Zhantian's eyes were filled with disbelief. His face was as white as snow. He could not accept this result. He was the Grand Master of the Demon-Slaying Hall and the most devoted follower of Emperor of Heaven Reverse. He was the spokesperson of Emperor of Heaven Reverse in the Heaven Reverse universe. Why would Emperor of Heaven Reverse help Lu Li instead of him? It's over. Lu Xuan, Ji Mingtian, Yang Xian, Dai Feiyu, Sha the Terror, and the others were in despair. Not only did Emperor of Heaven Reverse support Lu Li, but he also said that if Lu Li could achieve something, he could accept Lu Li as his protege. Were they also human? Why was there such a huge gap between them? They were all blessed by the heavens. To them, Lu Li was just a bumpkin from the northern desert, a country bumpkin. This country bumpkin had defeated them time and time again. Now, not only was he standing at a height that they could not even look up to, but he was also in control of the life and death of the entire human race. "Thank you, Master." Lu Li bowed again. As a matter of fact, when he learned that the animal tooth pendant belonged to Emperor of Heaven Reverse, he had already regarded Emperor of Heaven Reverse as his master. The Infinity Mountain. Lu Li stood up slowly. Gazing into the sky, he said with confidence, "Master, just you wait. I will go to the Infinity Mountain in the divinity to look for you sooner or later." Ji Zhantian. After a pause, Lu Li turned to Ji Zhantian and sneered, "What else do you have? Use them all. From today on, I, Lu Li, will be the Grand Master of the Demon-Slaying Hall, and you will become a traitor of the human race. You will not be buried in the graves of your ancestors. No, from today on, the Ji family will cease to exist." How can this be? How can this be? At this moment, Ji Zhantian seemed to have lost his soul. His eyes were hollow. He murmured to himself in a neurotic manner. His facial expressions were twisted. The originator artifact in his hand glowed. He shouted madly, "Lu Li, if you want to kill me, you will have to pay with your life." Lu Li waved his hands. The feather wind was stirred up again. Many silver dragons surrounded Ji Zhantian. Ji Zhantian once again hugged his head and howled. Buzzing, Lu Li's wicked bee glowed. Lu Renwang and the others came out. At the same time, Lu Li shouted to Patriarch of Law Enforcement and the others, "As the Grand Master of the Demon-Slaying Hall, I hereby give an order. Attack Ji Zhantian and kill this bastard." Jiang Tianshun and Great-Grandfather 3 responded at once. Some patriarchs of the 4 forces came as well. Patriarch of Law Enforcement asked with hesitation, "Lu Li, Grandmaster, can Ji Zhantian atone for his crime? After all, it is not easy for the human race to have a chosen warrior. What's more, the 4 alien races are here." "No," Lu Li shouted decisively. "I will deal with the 4 alien races. As long as this bastard is not dead, I will not be able to go out and fight against the alien races with peace of mind. If you acknowledge me as the Grand Master, then do it. Do it," several patriarchs yelled. Emperor of Heaven Reverse had appointed Lu Li as the Grand Master in person. How could they hesitate? Even Emperor of Heaven Reverse wanted to take Lu Li as his protege. Clearly, Following Lu Li would be promising. Do it, Patriarch of Law Enforcement said no more. Lu Li had made up his mind. Not even a god could save Ji Zhantian today. Dozens of patriarchs spread out and attacked Ji Zhantian from all sides. Lu Li controlled the silver dragon to move around so that the patriarch's attacks could land on Ji Zhantian. Master Yang, what should we do? In a yard, Che the Terror and Granny Butterfly looked at Yang Buqing. The situation was not looking good. Ji Zhantian might not be able to hold on much longer. If they did not take any action now, it would be their turn when Ji Zhantian was dead. What should we do? Yang Buqing forced a smile and said, What else can we do? We can only resign ourselves to fate. How dare you do it now? Li Shang and the others are our role models. Now, we can only hope that Lu Li will spare our lives. We, the old guys, will not be able to stay alive. Alas, Granny Butterfly sighed. At this moment, she seemed to have aged dozens of years. Her back was hunched. She said with regret, Back then, we should not have let him be. We should have killed him even at the risk of Xing Mu's wrath. Keeping a tiger in your bosom will only bring disaster. Lu Li is growing so fast. Che the Terror was in tears. The Yiksha race had never held any grudges against Lu Li. It was the Ji family that got them into trouble. Now, it seemed that they might not be able to save the Yiksha race. But what else could Che the Terror do? Apart from seeking death and infuriating Lu Li, there was nothing else he could do to help. Boom! After the time for 2 incense sticks to burn, a man fell from the sky and smashed down a castle. Ji Zhantian was stabbed by Lu Renhuang's spear. Blood gushed out from his chest. His eyes were wide open. He died with everlasting regret. Chapter 844. The moment Ji Zhantian died, the entire city fell into an eerie silence. All eyes were on Lu Li, the young man in the cyan robe. From this day on, this young man would stand at the peak of the human race. He would be the leader of the human race. He would control the life and death of many people, the prosperity and decline of many families. Patriarch of Law Enforcement waved his hand and gathered the patriarchs together. Then he took the lead, dropped to one knee, and shouted, Grandmaster! Grandmaster! Dozens of patriarchs shouted at the same time. Then many powerful warriors dropped to their knees. In the city came a shout that could topple mountains and overturn seas. Grandmaster! He was the new Grandmaster appointed by Emperor of Heaven Reverse. Young as he was, he could kill Ji Zhantian. Nobody had any doubts about Lu Li being the Grandmaster. Lu Renhuang did not kneel. He was not from the demon-slaying hall, so he did not know what had just happened. But, judging from the current situation, he could guess what had happened. His face revealed a trace of gratification and pride, but there was also a trace of awkwardness. His grandfather was currently kneeling in front of his son. This was outrageous. Great-Grandpa 3, Grandpa Jiang, please stand up. Lu Li could not stand it. 2 of them were his forefathers, and 1 was Jiang Qiling's grandpa. How would he accept this? Patriarch of Law Enforcement stood up naturally, but the other patriarchs did not. The Hall of Patriarchs had decided to deal with Lu Li. Even though many of them had abstained, they did not take Lu Li's side. They knelt and begged for forgiveness. Stand up. Lu Li was not in the mood to deal with these traitorous patriarchs. Too many patriarchs had died today. Almost all the patriarchs on Ji Zhantian's side were dead. He turned to Ji Mengtian and then used psychic power to check the city. In a manner, he saw Yang Xian, Dai Fei Yu, Yang Yu, and Sha the Terror gathered together. They were looking at him in terror. A glint of killing intent rose in Lu Li's eyes. Looking at Ji Mengtian, Lu Li said, Ji Mengtian, how many of you are involved in the plot against me? Tell me all. I will make you regret ever being born. She didn't kneel down like the other patriarchs. Instead, she stood in midair quietly and said coldly, Winner takes all. There is nothing to say. Lu Li, make it quick. You want to be happy? It's not that easy. Lu Li sneered and threw Uncle Nine of the Jun family a look. The latter dashed to Ji Mengtian's side before she could react. Huh? Ji Mengtian felt that her neck was being squeezed by a big hand. A strange energy entered her body. making her tremble. She knew that she could not even kill herself now. As expected, the ninth Lord of the June family restrained Ji Mengtian. Then, he placed his hand on top of her head and began to search her soul forcefully. "It's over." The light in Lu Xuan's eyes dimmed. He could no longer hide the fact that Ji Mengtian's soul was searched. He would not be able to escape death. Xiao, Songlong, Sha the Terror, Yang Xian, and the others were also disheartened. Ji Mengtian was the mastermind behind all this. Now that her soul was searched, there was nothing she could hide anymore. After a while, Uncle Nine of the June family stopped and nodded to Lu Li. Lu Li waved his hand and said, "Patriarch Jiang, send someone to take Ji Mengtian down. Wait at the plaza." Jiang Tianshun waved his hand. A patriarch flew over and took Jiang Qiling down to the plaza with demon trapping chains. "Read the names." Lu Li looked at Uncle Nine of the June family emotionlessly. Then he glanced at Jiang Tianshun and said, "Take down a name when I call it. If he dares to resist, kill him on the spot." Yes, Lu Li was the Grand Master of the Demon Slaying Hall. His order was the highest order. Also, Jiang Tianshun would not stop Lu Li from settling scores. He wished Lu Li could kill more. Lu Xuan? The first name Uncle Nine of the June family called was Lu Xuan, which surprised Lu Li. Patriarch of Law Enforcement was surprised. He turned to Great-Grandfather 3. Great-Grandfather 3 sighed in pain. He bowed to Patriarch of Law Enforcement and said, "I am getting senile." Lu Xuan did not reconstruct his soul. "Take him," Lu Li shouted. Jiang Tianshun went to a castle in person and dragged Lu Xuan out. Lu Li didn't even look at Lu Xuan. He waved his hand and said, "Take him away." "Ha ha ha." Lu Xuan laughed. Looking at Lu Li calmly, he said, "Lu Li, you are lucky. I admit that, but this is the only thing I can admit. Sometimes, luck is also a part of one's power. A loss is a loss. There is no excuse." Lu Li glared at Lu Xuan coldly and said no more. Yang Xian, Xiao, Songlong, Sha the Guisha, Dai Feiyu, Uncle Nine of the June family called out the names one by one. Jiang Tianshun flew over with a group of patriarchs at once. They took down all those people, locked them up with demon trapping chains, and escorted them to the plaza to wait for orders. Soon, all the young masters and young ladies who were involved in this matter were captured. As for the patriarchs of the Demon Slaying Hall and Ji Zhantian, they had all been killed. Making sure that no one else was around, Lu Li said, "I will add a few more. Yang Buqing, Che the Terror, Granny Butterfly, come out and accept your death." Whoosh, 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 Yang Buqing and the two patriarchs flew out from a yard. Their faces were filled with bitterness and sadness. Looking at Lu Li, Yang Buqing said, "Lu Li, I don't want to waste words. I just hope that you can let go of the Yang family. After all, they're innocent." "Okay." Lu Li waved his hand and said, "Don't worry. Lu Li, will repay kindness with kindness. When you die, I will put an end to the feud between me and your three races. I hope that you will keep your word, Grandmaster." Granny Butterfly bowed slightly, and then her body suddenly fell down silently, finally hitting the square. By the time everyone looked over, she was already dead. The cycle of the heavenly Tao, this is karma. Yang Buqing sighed slightly. He raised his hand and slapped his head. Guiche also slapped his head heavily. The two of them fell from the sky and landed beside Granny Butterfly. Granny, Dai Feiyu burst into tears. She cried her heart out. Yang Xian, Yang Yu, and the others were grief-stricken. That being said, they knew it was pointless to cry now. Soon, it would be their turn. "Stop crying." Lu Li was irritated. He shouted, "Dai Feiyu, you cried in the small battlefield. Then you cried in the Samsara city. This time, you're doing the same. If you are afraid and you know the consequences of going against me, why do you keep getting involved? Why do you want to murder me again and again?" Yang Buqing was right. The heavenly Tao revolves around retribution. The day you plotted to kill me, you should have thought that this would happen. You asked for it. Patriarch Jiang, kill them all. Leave no one alive. Jiang Tianshun turned to Patriarch of Law Enforcement. The latter was expressionless and showed no intention of pleading. Jiang Tianshun made up his mind and shouted, "Kill them all. Do it now." Clank, clank, under the watchful eyes of many people in the city, more than a dozen heads were cut off. More than a dozen noble heads were chopped off. More than a dozen proud sons and daughters were mercilessly slaughtered and lost their lives. Chapter 845. The war had come to an end. The result was beyond everyone's expectation. Ji Zhantian and the others were killed. Lu Li had become the new Grand Master of the Demon-Slaying Hall. The Grand Master of the Demon-Slaying Hall usually represented the most powerful warrior of the human race. Lu Li was too young, and he had risen so fast that many found it hard to accept. The patriarchs in particular. Many of them had lived for 700 or 800 years, while Lu Li was only in his 20s. For them, he was no different from a newborn calf. But now, this newborn calf was above everyone else. He had become the new Grand Master of the Demon-Slaying Hall, controlling the lives and deaths of many. Many people felt they were dreaming. If it were not for the strong smell of blood in the city, many would not believe it. Lu Li led a group of people into the Hall of Patriarchs. The city was cleaned up, and Jiang Tianshan was in charge of the aftermath. In the hall, Lu Li sat down at the seat of honor. Then, he turned to Patriarch of Law Enforcement and said, "Patriarch of Law Enforcement, from today on, you will be in charge of all the affairs of the Demon-Slaying Hall. Kill anyone who disobeys you." Patriarch of Law Enforcement stood up, cupped his fists, and said, "Yes, sir." The patriarchs were excited. They heard that Lu Li had always been a hands-off leader. It seemed that from now on, Lu Li was the Grandmaster in name, but Patriarch of Law Enforcement was the real Grandmaster. Lu Li nodded and said, "Look into the powerful warriors and talents of Ji Zhantian's side. Find and kill any that slip through the net or deal with them in a special way. Don't leave anything to chance. Otherwise, when we go to war with the 4 alien races, we will be stabbed in the back." After this experience, Lu Li would not show any mercy to his enemies. If he did not kill them, it would be him and his family and friends who would suffer. Weeds would grow again if they were not uprooted. Never imagine that the enemies would compromise to you or that they would be too afraid to play dirty tricks. Given the chance, the enemies that had been pardoned would stab you in the back. Therefore, Lu Li chose to crush all his enemies so that they would never have a chance to rise again. Patriarch of Law Enforcement nodded. Now that Lu Li had given him the order, he would do his job. Patriarch of Law Enforcement frowned. He stood up and asked, "Grandmaster, did you say that you are confident that you can defeat the 4 alien races?" "Yes, but I need to cultivate for some time." Lu Li nodded. He had learned the profound meaning of feather wind. He could generate feather wind constantly, which gave him the confidence to fight against the 4 alien races. Ji Zhantian was at the early stage of the semi-god realm, and the Asmodean Lord had just reached that level. Their souls must be about the same. Since he could kill Ji Zhantian, it was not impossible for him to kill the Asmodean Lord. That being said, he still needed to study the feather wind and figure out how to make better use of the feather wind to attack and defend. All right. They were reassured by Lu Li's words. The fact that Ji Zhantian was trapped by Lu Li's dragons of wind boosted their confidence. Lu Li's position was not very stable. Many people were secretly dissatisfied with it. If Lu Li could defeat the 4 alien races, then nobody would dare to go against him. That would be a great achievement. Father, assist the enforcement elder and take complete control of the city. I don't want anyone to play tricks in the dark. Lu Li turned to Lu Renhuang, who nodded. He was filled with killing intent. Ji Zhantian's plot against them had thoroughly enraged Lu Renhuang. Born in the Lu family, Lu Renhuang was not an indecisive person. He could kill without blinking. Lu Li asked about the situation in the Inferno and asked Patriarch of Law Enforcement to send someone to check on the Inferno and the City of Mystic Armor. He was afraid that Ji Mingtian had other plans. Lu Li went back to the Wicked Bead with Jiang Qiling and Little White after making arrangements. He left the outside matters to Patriarch of Law Enforcement and Lu Renhuang. Ji Zhantian was dead, and so were many patriarchs. Nobody in the city could defeat Lu Renhuang and Patriarch of Law Enforcement. Even if they could, they wouldn't dare to do anything rash. Lu Li went back to closed-door cultivation. But the city was not peaceful. Key figures of the families on Ji Zhantian's side were being arrested. Patriarch of Law Enforcement had said that he would rather miss the opportunity than let it go. But Patriarch of Law Enforcement did not send people to kill them. Instead, he planned to rebuild their souls so that they could forget about the past and focus on serving the demon-slaying hall. Lu Zhangtan and Lu Tiandi, for example, did not participate this time. Their souls had been reconstructed. They might have heard others talking about Lu Li's past, but after all, they had lost their memories. As a result, they did not harbor such unforgettable hatred. After their souls were reconstructed, they would be brainwashed so that they would follow the orders of the demon-slaying hall wholeheartedly and dedicate their lives to the demon-slaying hall. Lu Li was the Grand Master of the demon-slaying hall, the king that all the demon-slaying hall warriors had to submit to. Therefore, after their souls were reconstructed, they would not have second thoughts about Lu Li. There were millions of warriors in the city. Powerful warriors of different families were here. Most of the powerful warriors of the Hades society were here as well. But nobody dared to do anything. When Yang Buqing, Yang Xian, and Yang Yu were killed, they did not dare to do anything. Now that some of them were captured, they were even more afraid. The moment Ji Zhantian died, Lu Li rose like a new star. Nobody in the heaven-reverse universe could eclipse his light, and nobody dared to disobey him. The winner was the king, and the loser was the bandit. If they failed, they must admit defeat. Otherwise, if they made a scene, what awaited them would be the annihilation of their entire families. Even if Lu Li did not kill them, the other families that held grudges against them would not give up the chance to kick them when they were down. Therefore, the only thing they could do now was to endure. For the sake of their families, they had to endure humiliation. No matter what kind of humiliation they were subjected to, they had to endure it. Throughout the history of the Great Land, such as the Cyan Phoenix race and the Mammoth race, they did not even have the courage to go to the Central Plains. The demon-slaying city had undergone a drastic change. People in the city were in a constant state of panic. The threat of the 4 alien races was hanging over people's heads like a sharp sword. Now, they had to kill each other. The human race was already at a disadvantage. With the death of Ji Zhantian and the others, could the human race survive the attacks from the 4 alien races? Many people have been thinking about this question all day long. Boom, boom, boom. On the second day after Lu Li started to cultivate, the 4 alien races came again. This time, the Asmodean Lord did not show up. He only sent hundreds of thousands of alien races to attack the shield. After 4 days, and making sure that nothing was wrong in the city, the Asmodean Lord showed up. The retreating armies of the 4 races swarmed forward and continued to attack the city, protecting formation. The smell of blood lingered in the city. The Hall of Penal Law was still arresting people. Many were sent to the prison, and their souls were rebuilt. The atmosphere in the city was even more depressing. Many people were about to lose their minds, and there were signs that they would lose their minds. However, on the 8th day, a piece of news spread out, boosting the morale of the city. Lu Li would come out from cultivation in half a month. He would go out and fight the Asmodean Lord in person. He was confident that he could wipe out the 10 million warriors of the 4 alien races. The news was not random. It came from a patriarch of the Hall of Patriarchs. This patriarch was Jiang Qiling's grandfather. It was said that Jiang Qiling came out from the Wicked Bead today on purpose to calm people down. Half a month. Many people were burning with passion. Their morale was soaring. In half a month, everything would be revealed. Could the young man who had been creating miracles turn the tide and defeat the 4 alien races? Many people were waiting to see. P.S. According to yesterday's calculation, I owe you 13 chapters. Today, I will pay 1 chapter, and then the rest will be paid off. Chapter 846. It was Lu Li who told Jiang Qiling to spread the word. He was confident that he could fight the 4 alien races alone in half a month because he had a general idea of how to use Featherwind. He engraved a line diagram in his bead of life. With the support of divine energy, the line diagram became a living diagram. The dead diagram could not be understood, but the living diagram could be understood. Luli understood how to generate Featherwind. He had a fundamental understanding of the generation of Featherwind. His control over Featherwind had improved. At the moment, Luli was in his bead of life, which was filled with Featherwind. That was why he asked Jiang Qiling and Little White to go out. He had to simulate various ways of attack and defense. Jiang Qiling and Little White would inevitably be attacked by Featherwind. Flap, flap, the Featherwind was roaring and hovering in the hall. It was not condensing into vipers, beasts, or even bows and sabers. Luli could generate Featherwind. His control over Featherwind had improved. Now, he could generate Featherwind in any way he wanted. He used the Featherwind to form shields around him. They were like eggshells, which was more powerful than the silver dragons. The strength of the attacks doesn't matter. I can kill low-level warriors with Featherwind. Defense is the key. As long as the Featherwind can stop the Asmodean Lord from approaching me and prevent him from using spatial transference, I will win for sure. Low-level warriors of the 4 alien races could not even stand the average Featherwind. When the Featherwind touched them, their souls would be attacked. They would either pass out or their souls would collapse. There was nothing to be afraid of. Therefore, defense was the key. He had to stop the Asmodean Lord from approaching. Once the Asmodean Lord got close, Luli would be teleported away, just like before. Then, Luli would have to watch. The shield is not strong enough. The range is not large enough. Luli stared at the cyan Featherwind shield around him. He was still not confident. The shield only had a radius of 3 feet. The Asmodean Lord could move the area of 3 feet away. No matter how strong Luli's defense was, it wouldn't work. How about a floating castle? Luli had an idea. If he wanted to expand the range of defense, he might as well build a castle with Featherwind. He could hide in the castle and build many rooms in the castle. Every room could be moved. He could change the castle at any time. He could isolate the castle. Enemies would be trapped in the castle until they died. Give it a try. Luli controlled the Featherwind to form a room and then another room outside the room. The Featherwind was completely under his control. It was like a piece of plasticine that he could mold however he wanted. Soon, a small castle was built. It was a pity that the hall in the Wicked Bead was too small. This castle could not achieve the effect Luli had imagined. Very stable. Luli waited for a while and felt satisfied. He waited for another hour to make sure that the castle would not collapse. Then, he dispersed the Featherwind and dashed out of the Wicked Bead. The space inside the Wicked Bead was too small to build a large Featherwind castle. Therefore, Luli wanted to test it outside. However, the space outside was limited, unless Luli could test it above the city. No, the target will be exposed. Luli thought about it and used psychic power to check Great-Grandfather 3, who was guarding outside the castle. The latter immediately sensed it and strode in, asking, "Hall Master, you've come out of seclusion? How could it be so fast? Didn't you say it would take half a month?" "Great-Grandfather 3, I want to leave the city." Luli said, "Is there a secret teleportation formation that can send me out? Don't tell anyone about this. Just tell them that I'm still cultivating and I will take action in half a month." "Yes." Great-Grandfather 3 nodded. Then, he said with concern, "Grandmaster, will it be dangerous for you to go out by yourself? How about you take me with you?" "It's okay." Luli smiled. "Great-Grandfather 3, I have the Wicked Bead. The Asmodean Lord cannot do anything to me. Let my 5 soul slaves and Little White come in and go with me." "All right." Great-Grandfather 3 nodded. The 5 Earth Immortal Realm soul slaves were all stronger than him. It would be better to have the 5 Earth Immortal Realm soul slaves with him. Great-Grandfather 3 secretly brought Luli, the 5 Earth Immortal Realm warriors, and Little White in. Luli was put into the Wicked Bead. Under the guidance of Great-Grandfather 3, Luli went to an underground palace in a castle nearby and teleported to a nearby place. Although it was a nearby castle, it was on the other side of the valley, in a mountain near the Heaven Blood City. As soon as Luli came out, he went back into the Wicked Bead and let out the Earth Immortal Realm soul slaves to check the surroundings. There are 2 scouts. Uncle 9 of the June family, and the others soon noticed the scouts. Making sure that they were not, Luli told Uncle 9 of the June family not to alert the scouts and let them back into the Wicked Bead. Instead of flying toward the demon-slaying city, Luli flew to the west. He needed to find a secluded place to cultivate. The Wicked Bead kept a low profile. All the scouts would stay away from them without alerting any of them. Luli had been flying for an entire day. He had no idea how far he had traveled. This is it. This was a barren mountain, a basin. There were no scouts within a radius of 300 miles. This was a good place for cultivation. Luli did not go out rashly. He asked the 5 Earth Immortal Realm soul slaves to go out and check the surroundings. Luli stayed, even after he was sure that it was safe. He was afraid that the Asmodean Lord would sneak up on him like last time. Uncle 9 of the June family did not find the Asmodean Lord last time either. Featherwind. Luli let out a small amount of feather wind stored in the Wicked Bead. The feather wind drifted around. In this way, he could sense enemies hiding in cracks in space. Okay, the feather wind floated around. Making sure that it was safe, Luli flew out. As soon as he was out, he began to generate feather wind. Only with feather wind around him could he feel safe. The bead of life kept spinning. Feather wind came out quickly and formed an eggshell-like shield around Luli. Luli was relieved. He continued to generate feather wind. When the number of feather wind was reached, Luli began to build a huge castle with the feather wind. As more feather wind came out, the castle grew larger. 1 room, 10 rooms, 30 rooms. The castle Luli built was in the shape of a cube. With Luli as the center, there were more rooms on all sides. If enemies wanted to invade, they would have to break through the rooms built with feather wind. The walls of the rooms all contained horrifying soul attacks. Earth Immortal Realm warriors, even those with powerful souls, would not be able to reach Luli. This is good. Luli had built more than 100 rooms. There were more than 20 rooms in all directions. Enemies would be attacked by feather wind no matter which direction they came from. They would have to break through more than 20 rooms. I have to figure out a way to make the rooms flow. That is the safest way. Also, I have to turn the rooms dark. In this way, enemies will not be able to see clearly. It will be perfect if I can isolate psychic power. Luli stood in midair, deep in thought. The Feather Wind Castle was in the preliminary stage, but there were still many things that needed improvement. Chapter 847. Above a basin in the wilderness, a castle made of feather wind was floating in the air. The castle was translucent. It seemed to be made of countless feathers. There were many rooms in the castle. In the middle of the room, there was a man that was faintly discernible. Looking from the distance, the castle in the sky was like a mirage. It was surreal and did not seem to be real. Featherwind can be used like this. Young Master Lee can generate Featherwind now. It seems that he has absolute control over it. He can do whatever he wants. This castle made of Featherwind will kill all the Earth Immortal Realm warriors. Uncle Nine of the June family and another Earth Immortal Realm warrior discussed in a low voice as they looked around. They both knew how powerful Featherwind was. Now that a castle made of Featherwind was even more powerful. What? Look! Uncle Nine of the June family suddenly shouted. Pointing to the castle in the sky, he said, "The castle can move." The other Earth Immortal Realm warrior looked over. The castle was moving and flying toward a direction. Looking from a distance, it was like a floating castle flying in the sky. The castle is not collapsing? Uncle Nine of the June family could not believe it. It was already an eye-opener for the two Earth Immortal Realm warriors to build a castle with Featherwind. How come the castle was not collapsing at such a high speed? Lu Li's control over the Featherwind had reached an unimaginable level. Look, The other Earth Immortal Realm warrior shouted. Uncle Nine of the June family was speechless. In the sky, the Feather Wind Castle was moving to the left and to the right. Its shape was changing constantly. One moment, it was a strip, the next, it was a diamond, and the next, it was an oval. Lu Li's position in the castle was changing as well. Is this feather wind or mud? Uncle Nine of the June family was speechless. Even mud would crack if he rubbed it over and over again. However, under Lu Li's control, the feather wind was ever-changing and obedient. It would not collapse no matter what he did. Good. Lu Li was satisfied. He flew the feather wind castle around in the sky and changed its shape. After testing for a day and a half, he turned to Uncle Nine of the June family and asked, "Do you have a way to turn my castle black, completely black? It will be even better if you can isolate psychic power, turning black to block the probing of divine will." Lord Joe of the June family and the others narrowed their eyes. If it could really turn black and block the probing of divine senses, then even a soul formation cultivator would be played to death. Everyone fell in a deep thought. It was almost impossible to isolate the probing of divine senses, so everyone did notice that it had turned black. An Earth Immortal suggested, "Young Masterly, why don't you release some poisonous mist? Everything within 100 miles will turn black." The poison mist is not bad. An Earth Immortal took out a bead and said, "Young Masterly, this bead of mine can release poisonous smoke. It's not very toxic, but if an Earth Immortal breathes it in, it will greatly affect his combat ability." "The poison mist won't work?" Another Earth Immortal Realm warrior shook his head and said, "Young Master Li's castle can move. Once the castle moves, the poisonous fog will be useless. I think young Master Li should study a profound meaning of darkness. If he can combine the profound meaning of darkness with the feather wind, the feather wind castle will be more powerful." "Yes." The June family's ninth lord nodded and said, "The dark profound itself has the ability to block out the probing of divine senses. If young Master Li can comprehend a powerful dark profound and fuse it with his divine senses, its power will be terrifying." Profound meaning of darkness? Lu Li was intrigued. If he could comprehend a profound meaning of darkness and fuse it with his divine senses, the castle would be quite powerful. That being said, profound meanings were not something that could be learned at will. Lu Li had to ask the Earth Immortal Realm warrior to bring up the bead so that he could try it with the poisonous smoke. Right, seeing that Earth Immortal Realm warrior flying up, Lu Li thought about it and said, "Try to attack me." "Attack you?" The Earth Immortal Realm warrior blinked but did not dare to do anything. "Do whatever you can to attack me." "That is an order," Lu Li shouted. The Earth Immortal Realm warrior did not hesitate anymore. He dashed into the Feather Wind Castle directly. As soon as he dashed into the Feather Wind Castle, he hugged his head and howled. The moment he pierced through the walls of the room, he suffered a powerful soul attack. He felt like hundreds of millions of golden needles were piercing his soul. "All of you, come and attack me. Try to get close to me," Lu Li shouted to the other four. The four of them were frustrated. They dashed over from all sides and used all kinds of skills to attack the Feather Wind Castle from a distance. Boom, 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 several streaks of horrifying Xian energy landed on the walls of the castle. The walls were blasted open at once. But soon, more feather wind came over and repaired the walls. "Keep going," Lu Li's voice came from inside the Feather Wind Castle. The other four used profound meanings to attack the Feather Wind Castle from a distance. Boom, 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 the walls around the Feather Wind Castle were blasted open. But Lu Li was fast in repairing the castle. As soon as the walls were cracked open, more feather wind would come over and repair the damaged ones. "Let's force our way in." It was impossible to break into the Feather Wind Castle from a distance. Uncle Nine of the June family and the other three looked at each other. The four of them were ready to force their way into the Feather Wind Castle from 4 different directions. Unlike the previous one, the four of them did not go into the walls directly. Instead, they broke the walls with their attacks and dashed into the rooms inside. The four of them were ready to break down the walls one by one. In this way, They could reach Lu Li and complete their mission. Bang! Uncle Nine of the June family held his saber. The saber gave out a dark glare as he hacked at the walls in front of him. Once again, he broke down the walls and dashed into the second room. Bang, bang, bang. The other three were doing the same. They were aiming at where Lu Li was, breaking down the walls and moving closer to him. Something is not right. Soon, the four of them realized that something was wrong. They had broken down 7 or 8 rooms and realized that Lu Li was more than 20 rooms away from them. It was as if they had been going around in circles. The direction is changing. Young Master Li is making new rooms. It may seem that he is not moving, but the castle is changing. Uncle Nine of the June family came to a realization. Lu Li laughed. You are right, but you are the only ones. If there were enemies, they would not have the time to guess. Rise of Featherwind. As soon as Lu Li finished his words, the walls around the room they were in suddenly cracked. Silver dragons came out and wrapped around them. Then, the walls came back again, forming a cage of Featherwind. For miserable cries came out. Lu Li was relieved. With the Featherwind castle, he was confident that he could fight against the Asmodean Lord. The Featherwind castle covered an area with a radius of more than 3 miles. Featherwind was everywhere. No matter where the Asmodean Lord was hiding, he would be able to sense the presence of the Featherwind. If the Asmodean Lord wanted to kill Lu Li, he would have to break down the Featherwind castle by force. Go on. Chapter 848. The demon-slaying city had been attacking the city. 7 to 8 million warriors were divided into 3 groups, taking turns to attack day and night. Masters of the 3 alien races were standing on the mountains nearby, but the Asmodean Lord was nowhere to be seen. Nobody knew where he was or when he would show up. The city wall of the demon-slaying city was crowded with warriors. They were not in a panic like before. Instead, they were in high spirits. Because of Lu Li's words, they saw hope. In his 20s, Lu Li had killed Ji Zhantian, defeated the warriors of the Great Land, and became the most powerful warrior of the Heaven Reverse universe. This in itself was a miracle. When Emperor of Heaven Reverse made his name, he was only 1 or 2 years younger than Lu Li. What was more, Emperor of Heaven Reverse thought highly of Lu Li. Therefore, everyone was waiting and looking forward to Lu Li's half a month's time. He would defeat the 4 alien races and kill the Asmodean Lord. Half a month passed by in a flash. Today, many warriors had gone to the city wall. Many warriors went to the castle. Those with high status flew up to the sky, waiting for Lu Li to show up and fight the Asmodean Lords. Patriarch of Law Enforcement, Lu Renhuang, Jiang Qiling, and Zhang Tianshun were on the city wall. They all knew that Lu Li had left the city a long time ago. They were nervous, but excited and expectant at the same time. Lu Li was not one to brag. What was more, he had defeated Ji Zhantian. The Asmodean Lord and Ji Zhantian were at similar realms. Lu Li should be fine. All the patriarchs were on the city wall. Patriarch of Law Enforcement had given the order to prepare for war. Once he gave the order, the shield of the demon-slaying city would be activated and the entire army would charge out to kill the warriors of the 4 alien races. Many patriarchs were rubbing their hands and staring into the distance, waiting for Lu Li to show up. What? The 4 alien races sensed something was wrong. Family patriarchs of the 3 alien races flew down from the mountains nearby. They stood outside the city and stared into the city. Today, all the powerful warriors in the city had come out. Were the humans ready to fight to the death? It was late in the morning. Nothing happened at the demon-slaying city. Nothing happened behind the 4 alien races. Lu Li did not show up, and neither did the Asmodean Lord. Time moved on. Lu Li did not show up. The warriors in the city were getting impatient. Even if Lu Li did not attack the 4 alien races, he should show up by now. Countless pairs of eyes stared from morning to noon and then into the afternoon, but Lu Li still didn't show up. Even Jiang Qiling and Lu Renhuang were growing impatient. Lu Li and the Asmodean Lord hadn't shown up yet. Could they be fighting in the distance? Lu Li had always been a man of his word. How could he not be here? Should I go out of the city to take a look? But Patriarch of Law Enforcement shook his head and said, No, any of us will die if we go out. Can you stop the Asmodean Lord's attack? Lu Renhuang's eyes dimmed down. At his current realm, he was not sure that he could withstand the Asmodean Lord's attack. If he went out, he might not be able to come back. Look! Suddenly, one of the elders cried out. Everyone turned to look in the direction the elder was pointing. Through the dense ranks of harpy soldiers, they saw a black cloud floating in the west. This black cloud was incredibly dense, and it was impossible to see what was inside. It felt like a void beast was trying to swallow everything in its path. What is that? Many warriors of the 4 alien races were frightened. Masters of the 3 alien races stared at the black cloud with solemn expressions. The black cloud was coming from the valley. Did that mean that the tens of thousands of warriors in the valley had all died? How could they be killed so easily and without making a sound? Yuchi, go and have a look. Master of the voodoo race waved his hand. An earth immortal realm warrior of the feather race flew over with thousands of warriors. They approached the black cloud from afar and used psychic power to check. Someone was inside. It is Luli. The feather race earth immortal realm warrior yelled. Then he waved his hand and said, Attack. Swish! Thousands of harpies unleashed their arrows. Streaks of multicolored light shot into the black clouds, but they didn't even cause a ripple. It was as if these arrows had fallen into a quagmire and were swallowed up by the black clouds in an instant. Luli, it is Luli. Many warriors of the 4 alien races shouted when they saw the man standing in the black cloud with psychic power. Luli was no stranger to them. Many young disciples of the 4 alien races once fought against him in the small battlefield. Buzzing above the southern part of the army of the 4 clans, the space was suddenly torn apart, and a burly man covered in black armor suddenly appeared. Asmodean Lord! The Asmodeans on the ground shouted. Their Asmodean Lord was here. No matter how strong Luli was, there was nothing to be afraid of. Previously, Luli had tried to attack the Asmodean Lord with the wicked bead, but he was teleported away by the Asmodean Lord. Luli, hand over the wicked bead, and I will retreat with the 4 alien races. For the next 10,000 years, the Asmodeans will not attack the humans. What do you say? The Asmodean Lord's cold voice resounded in the wilderness. Even those in the demon-slaying hall could hear him clearly. The dark cloud moved toward the Asmodean Lord quietly. The feather race warriors had to step back. A moment later, Luli's voice came from the dark cloud. Asmodean Lord, if you become my sole slave, I will not wipe out the Asmodeans. Otherwise, if I have the chance, I will wipe out all of you. How dare you? How dare you to make the Asmodean Lord your sole slave? Asmodean Lord, tear him apart. Many Asmodeans were enraged and yelled. The Asmodean Lord sneered as well. If you don't want to talk, then we will have to fight. Luli, if you have the guts, don't go into the wicked bead. Swish, the Asmodean Lord snuck into a crack in space and vanished into thin air. Many powerful warriors of the demon-slaying hall were nervous. The 4 alien races stopped attacking as well, waiting for the fight between Lu Li and the Asmodean Lord to come to an end. The Asmodean Lord did not go near Lu Li recklessly because he sensed danger from the dark cloud around Lu Li. There seemed to be something strange lurking in the dark cloud, like a half-transparent castle. If the Asmodean Lord were to force his way in, something might go wrong. Therefore, the Asmodean Lord stood outside the dark cloud and began to generate clones. Outside the dark cloud, Asmodean Lords came out from the cracks in space. The Asmodean Lords wielded their daggers and shot shadows at the dark cloud. The Asmodean Lords' attacks were sharp. The feather wind castle in the dark cloud collapsed bit by bit. It could not withstand the Asmodean Lord attacks. There were over 100 rooms in the feather wind castle. Under the Asmodean Lord's attacks, at least 20 had collapsed. Strangely enough, Luli did not let the collapsed walls recover. Instead, he took out the wicked bead with a solemn look as if he was going to run into the wicked bead. You want to run? Not so fast. Seeing that the wicked bead was glowing, The Asmodean Lord did not hesitate any longer. He dashed across the space in a blur, trying to finish Lu Li in one move. Ha ha ha. Chapter 849. Lu Li's previous speculation was correct. The Asmodean Lord did not really vanish in the air when he was teleporting. He was just using cracks in space or some miraculous skill that made it impossible for others to detect his whereabouts. At the end of the day, he was still in the space, and he did not teleport. As long as he was teleporting in space, there would be some tremors or abnormalities. At the moment, an area with a radius of more than 3 miles was enveloped by Lu Li's feather wind. He could sense any changes in space. At the moment, he was keenly aware that there was a tremor coming toward him from the left. He shouted, and the feather wind around him began to move. The broken barrier was restored, and a new feather wind castle was built. At the same time, in the room where the Asmodean Lord was in, the 4 walls exploded at the same time, turning into 4 silver dragons that swept toward the Asmodean Lord. The feather wind from all directions quickly gathered and rebuilt the 4 walls. What? The Asmodean Lord showed up in midair. He was surprised that Lu Li could find where he was hiding. That was a special skill of the Asmodeans. Basically, no one at the same realm could break it, not to mention that Lu Li was only at the human sovereign realm. Soul attack. The Asmodean Lord did not have the time to figure out how Lu Li found out. The 4 silver dragons were whooshing toward him, and the horrifying soul attack began to invade his core of soul. That is horrifying. Run! The Asmodean Lord felt as if 10,000 needles were stabbing into his soul from all sides. He was frightened. His soul was strong, and yet he was affected. Soul attack was the most horrifying. He could not stay here any longer. He wanted to run away and then find a way to attack later. The Asmodeans had always preferred sneak attacks and assassinations, not face-to-face battles. This was the talent of the Asmodean Lord and the skills created by generations of Asmodeans. At the moment, the Asmodean Lord was out in the open while Lu Li was in the dark. The Asmodean Lord was suffering from such a strong soul attack. Naturally, he felt uncomfortable and wanted to run away at once. However, it was easy to get in, but not so easy to leave. When he came in, there seemed to be no resistance when he went through the feather wind barrier. Now that he wanted to leave, he felt he had to endure a soul attack after going through a barrier. Buzzing with a dark glare, the Asmodean Lord used a special skill of the Asmodean Lord, trying to escape without being noticed. Hee, Lu Li sneered. The walls of the 3 rooms around the Asmodean Lord cracked, and more than 10 silver dragons came out. The silver dragon flew around the great demonic god's body. The great demonic god's body was forced to appear, constantly enduring the powerful soul attacks. The great demonic god's blood-red eyes were about to spit fire. I can only force my way out. Great demon god gritted his teeth and brandished a short sword, thrusting it forward a few times. Sword chi pierced through the air, forcibly tearing apart the walls of the room in front of him. Great demon god then rushed out. Bang, 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 he continuously released sword chi and passed through 4 to 5 rooms. However, when his spiritual will swept forward, he was dumbfounded. Previously, he felt that he would be able to get out after passing through a dozen or so rooms. Now he realized that he still needed to pass through a dozen or so rooms to get out. What the hell? Could it be a maze? The Asmodean Lord used psychic power to check the surroundings. After a while, he noticed something was wrong. Lu Li was adjusting the rooms in the castle. The rooms could all flow. Every time he tried to break through, more and more rooms would converge, trapping him in here. Several silver dragons formed by Featherwind were with him at all times, attacking his core of soul every second and every minute. For now, the Asmodean Lord was able to defend himself. However, at this rate, he would not be able to. When his soul was damaged, sooner or later, he would be tortured to death by Lu Li. There is no other way. The Asmodean Lord made up his mind. He stabbed at the space around him with his short sword. This time, he did not release sword chi. Instead, he tore the space apart, creating a swirl in space. Spatial transference? Luli had been keeping an eye on this place. He shook his head helplessly when he saw the Asmodean Lord using the spatial transference profound meaning. Buzzing, the space where the Asmodean Lord was swallowed up. The Asmodean Lord vanished on the spot. He had been teleported out. The spatial transference profound meaning could teleport others as well as oneself, as long as one was in the space. If the Asmodean Lord had not been teleported away, Luli was confident that he could be trapped alive. When the Asmodean Lord's soul was damaged, Luli could gather powerful warriors to kill him. However, there was no other way. That being said, the Asmodean Lord left by spatial transference. Based on his previous experiences, the Asmodean Lord would not be able to come back in less than a day. A day? Luli put on a cruel smile. The millions of warriors of the 4 alien races would not be enough for him to kill in one day. Where is the Asmodean Lord? Many warriors of the 4 alien races have been keeping an eye on the battle in the sky. All of a sudden, the Asmodean Lord disappeared. They asked in surprise. The Asmodean Lord had always been elusive. They were not worried that he would run away. What they were wondering was where he had gone. Phew, the dark cloud in the sky suddenly changed its direction and drifted toward the army. Inside the dark cloud, feather wind was blowing to both sides. The feather wind formed small dragons of wind in midair. 10, 100, 1,000. The dragons of wind were coming together quickly. In the time for a dozen blinks, 1,000 dragons of wind had come into being. They lined up in the sky. This time, the 4 alien races were panicking. The Asmodean Lord had not done anything for a long time. Luli, on the other hand, was making more dragons of wind, as if he was preparing for a powerful attack. Oh no, retreat. A jade talisman and master of voodoo race's hand cracked. He was taken aback. The Asmodean Lord had sent him a signal to retreat. The Asmodean Lord had been missing for a long time. Master of Voodoo race had sensed something was wrong. You want to retreat? Too late. Luli's cold voice echoed in the sky. He waved his hands. The dragons of wind dashed toward the 4 alien races. Swish, swish, every time the feather wind blew by, there would be some strange noises. Not even Earth immortal realm warriors could stand it, not to mention the strengthened dragons of wind. More than 1,000 dragons of wind dashed to all sides. Shrill noises could be heard everywhere. The warriors had just been informed to retreat, but it was too late. Many warriors covered their heads and rolled on the ground, howling in pain. Many warriors with weak souls fainted at once. The 4 alien races were so dense that there was no end to them. Now, they were falling one by one as if they were harvesting straws. It was a shocking and ghastly scene. Mass attack? So powerful? What profound meaning is that? The masters of the 3 alien races wanted to stall Luli for a moment so that the 4 alien races could retreat. Seeing this scene, the 3 of them were dumbfounded. Even if it was a 9th grade profound meaning, it shouldn't be able to have such destructive power, right? Autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. On the city wall, the warriors watched as the alien races fell one after another. In the time for a dozen breaths, at least 500,000 warriors had lost their abilities to fight or fainted. The warriors were dumbfounded and did not know what to say. Get ready. Chapter 850. Luli did not order the army to fight, because the voodoo poison had not been cured yet. Sending the army out would result in heavy casualties. It would take Luli a long time to kill all by himself. That being said, he had plenty of time. Whoosh, the dragons of Featherwind were wreaking havoc in the sky. Wherever the dragons reached, the powerful soul attacks would reach the warriors of the 4 alien races. The average warriors of the 4 alien races were only at the noble lord realm. How could they survive the soul attacks in the Featherwind? Back in the forbidden ground of Elder God, even Lung Wuxin and the other human sovereign realm warriors found it hard to stand the soul attacks in the Featherwind. Now, Luli's Featherwind was an enhanced version. Naturally, the average warriors could not stand it. Luli flew the feather wind castle quickly. The bead of life kept generating feather wind and blowing it out from the castle. For Luli, the feather wind was endless. It was not his own power, but the force in heaven and earth that he borrowed. There would come a time when a man would run out. Shin energy, soul energy, and other forces would run out one day. On the other hand, the force in heaven and earth was endless. Luli could use it at will, and he could use it at will. The dragons of wind were fast. The 4 alien races were fleeing to all sides. But could they outrun the dragons of wind? More and more warriors were caught up by the dragons of wind. They either passed out or rolled around on the ground, holding their heads and howling in pain. Fight! The emperors of the 3 alien races looked at each other. They were determined. Luli had released too many dragons of wind, and they were moving too fast. If they could not stop Luli for a moment, the nearly 10 million warriors of the 4 alien races would lose their lives here. The nearly 10 million warriors were the elites and powerful warriors of the 4 alien races. For instance, the millions of warriors at the demon-slaying city were 80% of the human race's warriors. If all the powerful warriors were killed, the 4 alien races would not be able to recover for 10,000 years. After all, powerful warriors could not be produced in batches. Whoosh, 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 the Earth Immortal Realm warriors and human Sovereign Realm warriors of the 3 alien races flew up toward the dark cloud. Powerful Asmodeans hid in the sky, ready to kill Luli. Shoot, the Harpy race's leader was exceptionally handsome. He was tall and muscular, and from afar, he looked like a handsome prince. No one would think that he was a 300-year-old monster. As he roared, the Feather Race warriors shot arrows from all directions. The arrows of the Feather Race warriors were different from ordinary arrows. Their arrows were imbued with all sorts of profound mysteries. Some of the arrows carried flames, some carried icicles, some carried lightning, and some carried the power of metal. Human scum, eat my arrow! A beautiful woman of the Feather Clan shouted. She held a beautiful white longbow in her hand. The longbow hugged the moon, and a beam of white light shot out. That beam of light contained lightning and purple light. Surprisingly, it contained 2 different powers Upanishads. He Shung, who allowed you to come up here? Quickly retreat. The master of the Feather Race took a look and was taken aback. This was a descendant of the royal family of the Feather Race, a talented princess. She had reached the human sovereign realm in her 20s. She could not die here. The Feather Race princess stuck out her chest and said with pride, "Your Majesty, we have so many powerful warriors. Do we need to be afraid of a human punk? Rong Sheng will tear him into 18 pieces and feed him to the great emperor." Right? A prince of the barbarian race yelled, "Tear this human devil apart. Kill, kill, kill." The prince of the barbarian race stomped on the ground. He dashed forward and punched at the dark cloud in the sky. A shadow of his fist whooshed across the sky. At the same time, 2 thunderbolts as thick as fingers shot out from the horn on his head and into the Feather Wind Castle. Powerful warriors of the barbarian race and the voodoo race attacked the Feather Wind Castle with profound meanings from all sides. Swish! In the space outside the Feather Wind Castle, many dark figures came out. All of them were wearing black armor, and their eyes were red. The powerful Asmodeans were on the move. They dashed toward Luli from all sides, trying to stab him to death. Ha ha ha! Luli's laughter came from the Feather Wind Castle. The dark air in the castle was dispersing. Luli waved his hands. The rooms in the castle exploded, turning into many dragons of feather wind that whooshed toward all sides. The Feather Wind Castle itself was built with endless feather wind. When the castle collapsed, it turned into feather wind. Luli condensed the feather wind into dragons that whooshed toward all sides. The wicked bead in Luli's hand glowed as he vanished into the air. Woo, the Feather Wind Castle turned into dozens of silver dragons of feather wind that whooshed toward all sides. The powerful warriors were stunned. They were all enveloped by the feather wind. None of them, not even the masters of the 3 alien races, could stand it. Ah, it hurts. That is a horrifying soul attack. No, fall back, hundreds of powerful warriors of the 4 alien races cried out. Even the masters of the 3 alien races were rolling around in the air, holding their heads. The masters of the 3 alien races were merely at the peak of the Earth immortal realm. Not even the Asmodean Lord and Jijantian could stand the silver dragons of Featherwind. How could they? As for Hisheng, the prince of the barbarian race, and the other young warriors, they passed out as soon as the silver dragons of Featherwind arrived. They didn't even feel any pain in their heads. Whoosh, the wicked bead whooshed on in a cyan blur. Many were smashed to death. When the wicked bead flew past the master of the feather race, 5 people came out and killed the master of the feather race in an instant. Buzzing, the 5 were taken into the wicked bead as soon as they made their moves. Then, the wicked bead kept flying around. This time, it was aimed at the master of the voodoo race. Boom! The master of the voodoo race was smashed away by the wicked bead. Before he could react, Uncle Nine of the June family and the others showed up and bombarded him. However, this time, they did not kill the master of the voodoo race. Uncle Nine of the June family took the master of the voodoo race and fled into the distance. The master of the voodoo race could cure the voodoo poison as well as release other poisons. Luli dared not to let the master of the voodoo race die, or put him into the wicked bead. He had to let Uncle Nine of the June family take him away and see if he could search his soul and cure the voodoo poison. Whoosh! Once again, the wicked bead whooshed across the sky. This time, it was aimed at the master of the barbarian race. The master of the barbarian race was strong. He was smashed away by the wicked bead, but he was not harmed. Boom! 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 4 Earth Immortal Realm warriors flew out from the wicked bead and struck at the master of the barbarian race. But they only managed to knock him away, and he was not seriously injured. Activate the shield. All warriors attack. Reserve forces, stay here. In the demon-slaying city, Patriarch of Law Enforcement stopped hesitating after he saw that the master of the voodoo race was taken down. Luli had defeated the allied forces of the 4 alien races. The masters of the 3 alien races were either captured or killed. The master of the barbarian race was not going to survive. How could Patriarch of Law Enforcement miss such a good chance? Luli's power was limited. It was impossible for him to kill an army of 10 million. It would be a miracle if he could kill 1/3 of the 4 alien races. Once the allied forces of the 4 alien races escaped from the valley, it would be difficult to kill them on a large scale. If more than half of the 10 million could stay at the demon-slaying battleground, the 4 alien races would suffer a great loss. The demon-slaying battleground could enjoy 10,000 years of peace. The human race could have a chance to recuperate and develop. Buzzing, the shield over the demon-slaying city glowed and vanished in midair. Patriarch of Law Enforcement, Lu Renwang, and Jiang Tianshun took the lead. Behind them, groups of powerful human warriors swarmed over like hungry tigers. Chapter 851. Charge. Luli was smashing at the master of barbarian race with a wicked bead when he suddenly heard a loud roar coming from the distance. He frowned after checking with psychic power. He didn't give the order for all the human warriors to come out, but he didn't pay much attention after checking with psychic power. The human warriors and powerful warriors had been suppressed by the 4 alien races. They didn't dare to leave the cities to fight. They could only watch as the 3 cities were flattened to the ground. Their hearts were burning with anger. If they were not allowed to vent their anger, something might go wrong. Also, the master of voodoo race had been captured. It shouldn't be difficult to get the voodoo poison out of him. Some of the 4 alien races had retreated into the valley. It was impossible for Luli to kill more than half of the 4 alien races on his own. Also, many warriors of the 4 alien races that were knocked out by the feather wind had woken up. Strong as the feather wind was, it was not strong enough to destroy the enemy's souls. It would be inefficient for Luli to kill them all by himself. The Asmodean Lord had teleported away. No matter how fast he was, it would take him half a day to come back. Half a day should be enough. Luli was relieved. The four alien races were in no mood to fight. The human warriors were as ferocious as tigers. Half a day should be enough to kill more than half of the four alien races. Go on. Luli kept smashing at the master of barbarian race. Every now and then, he would send out the four Earth immortal realm warriors. When a master of barbarian race was wounded, Luli shouted, "Little White, go and bite this barbarian to death." Squeak, squeak, the wicked bee glowed as Little White came out and bit at the master of barbarian race's neck. Little White's teeth could crush a quasi-relic. The master of barbarian race had a strong defense. But could his body be tougher than a quasi-relic? Clearly not. Soon, the master of barbarian race's neck was bitten off. Blood gushed out from his strong body and splashed onto a feather race warrior's face. Squeak, squeak. Seeing that the feather race warrior was about to run, Little White hopped on his back and bit off his wings. The feather race warrior lost his balance and fell to the ground. Go to hell. Lu Renwang was fighting against an Earth immortal realm Asmodean. That Asmodean Earth immortal realm Asmodean realized that Lu Renwang was an important figure of the human race. The Asmodean showed up in midair, trying to kill Lu Renwang. However, Lu Renwang seemed to have sensed it. As soon as the powerful Asmodean showed up, Lu Renwang stabbed him to death with his spear. Jiang Tianshun and Great-Grandfather 3's teamwork was very fierce as well. Great-Grandfather 3 also had the mystic armor, and he was able to hold the front, while Jiang Tianshun unleashed the Fiend Soul Feast butterfly. The two of them killed an Earth immortal warrior of the barbarian tribe with one move. The Deacon Elder held a gray metal rod in his hand. He was wearing a black rank 8 divine armor, and there was a gray barrier around the armor. His defense was heaven-defying. Black air moved around his iron stick. He had learned the destruction power Upanishad, the most brutal attack. Each time he swung his iron stick, an alien warrior would die or be smashed away. Jiang Qiling joined the fight, but she was accompanied by 5 or 6 Earth immortal realm patriarchs. She was Lu Li's wife. Who would dare to hurt her? After the master of the barbarian race was killed, Lu Li focused on Jiang Qiling with psychic power. Seeing that the 5 patriarchs were in no mood to fight just to protect her, Lu Li sighed. He flew the wicked bead over and took Jiang Qiling in. "Darling," Jiang Qiling shouted in delight as soon as she came in. Today, Lu Li had demonstrated his prowess by defeating the Asmodean Lord and the 4 alien races. To Jiang Qiling, Lu Li had become a hero that attracted the attention of the world. She shared his glory. "Okay, stay here. Later, you can go with them. It will be safer this way." Lu Li patted Jiang Qiling's face. He used psychic power and flew the wicked bead to wherever there was strong resistance. Boom, boom, boom. 7 or 8 powerful barbarian race warriors were fending off the human warriors. Lu Li flew the wicked bead over and smashed away 3 barbarians. "Go and kill the barbarians," Lu Li shouted. Jiang Qiling and the 4 Earth immortal realm warriors dashed out and bombarded the 3 barbarians that were smashed away. With Jiang Qiling's Soul Feast butterfly, it was easier for them to attack. The 3 barbarians were killed at once. "Okay, let's go," Lu Li said. He put them away and used psychic power to check on the voodoo race. Some powerful voodoo race warriors had started to release poison, and many human warriors had been poisoned. The 4 alien races were collapsing. That being said, the 4 alien races were not stupid. They knew that if they did not put up a fight, the 4 alien races would be wiped out. Since they were going to die anyway, they would fight to the bitter end to protect their people. Boom! The wicked bead fell down like a meteorite, crushing several voodoo race warriors into pieces. Then, the wicked bead went on a rampage among the voodoo race warriors, smashing them to death one after another. The voodoo race's poisons and bewitched insects were strong, but weak in terms of defense, offense, and speed. The wicked bead was as fast as a semi-god realm warrior. At full speed, the wicked bead's momentum was horrifying. Human sovereign realm warriors of the voodoo race could not stand it. Even Earth immortal realm warriors of the voodoo race would be injured. These voodoo race warriors are the worst. Kill more of them. Luli used psychic power to check. Many humans were poisoned and were taken away for treatment. He wondered if they could be cured. Controlling the wicked bead, Luli went on a rampage among the voodoo race warriors, killing them or injuring them. Charge, casualties were inevitable on the human side. Nevertheless, the morale was high and the cries of killing were loud. The 4 alien races were putting up some resistance, but they could not stop their defeat. After all, the masters of the 3 alien races had either died or been captured. The morale was shaken. More importantly, the Asmodean Lord had not shown up for a long time. The Asmodean Lord was the soul of the 4 alien races. Now that the Asmodean Lord had run away, what else could they do? The 4 alien races were running fast. However, to get back to their respective cities, they had to go through a valley. The valley was small. Only a dozen warriors could go through at a time. Therefore, many of the 4 alien races were stuck outside the valley. When the human warriors arrived, the outside of the valley had turned into a slaughterhouse. First, the human warriors launched long-range attacks and wiped out many warriors of the 4 alien races. Charge! Jiang Tianshun was enjoying himself. Seeing that Lu Li was controlling the wicked bead to crush the 4 alien races outside the valley, Jiang Tianshun yelled in excitement, "Grandmaster, go and block off the valley. This time, we must kill all the 4 alien races." Idiot Patriarch of Law Enforcement, Great-Grandfather 3, Lu Renhuang, and the others looked back at Jiang Tianshun. Jiang Tianshun touched his nose in embarrassment. Soon he figured out. By blocking off the valley, the 4 alien races would have no way to escape. What would the 4 alien races do when they realized that they had no chance to escape? They would have to fight to the bitter end. By then, they would not be facing a bunch of defeated warriors, but a bunch of bloodthirsty desperados. By then, even if they could kill all of them, the human race would have to pay a heavy price. Defeated warriors were the easiest to kill because they had no will to fight. The only thing on their minds was to run away. Passive resistance would reduce their abilities by half. When the 4 alien races risked their lives, their abilities would be enhanced immediately. Lu Li clearly understood this. It was not practical to wipe out the 4 alien races. Leaving 6 or 7 million alive would be enough. What was more, the Asmodean Lord could come back at any time. By that time, the Asmodean Lord would seek revenge, and many human warriors would lose their lives. Charge! Chapter 852. By the time Lu Li showed up at the demon-slaying city, it was almost dusk. By the time the army reached the valley, the sun had set. A blood moon rose up, dyeing the entire land red. No, the land outside the valley had already been dyed red, even without the blood moon's illumination. The human army, the demon race, the winged race, the barbarian race, and the witch race were fighting together. More than 15 million soldiers were fighting here. Broken limbs and mutilated corpses were everywhere. Many heads had been chopped off and trampled on by the soldiers. Bodies piled up and blood flowed like a river. However, many bodies outside the valley belonged to the 4 alien races. The morale of the 4 alien races had dropped to the freezing point. They were utterly defeated. It wasn't that the 4 races didn't have any brave warriors, and it wasn't that they didn't have any warriors who were not afraid of death. The canyon road was too narrow, and there were too few people who could escape. Therefore, many powerful warriors of the 4 alien races tried to organize a counterattack, only to be crushed by a mountain-sized ball. Lu Li did not know much about the art of war, but he did know one thing. He would beat up the most ruthless and the one who took the lead. He was the Grandmaster of the demon-slaying hall. The wicked bead's defense was unbreakable. Naturally, he would pick the most powerful warrior. Therefore, if any one of the 4 alien races caused great casualties to the human race, Lu Li would fly the wicked bead over and crush the resisting army. Soldiers were all by themselves, and generals were all by themselves. The strength of a commander was important. The Asmodean lord was missing and Lu Li was invincible. Naturally, the two armies were not on the same level. Lu Renhuang and Patriarch of Law Enforcement were also unstoppable. They pierced into the army like knives. Everywhere they went, they were unstoppable. Patriarch Jiang, watch out, from the left side came a shout of alarm. Great-grandfather 3 knocked away a barbarian. He took a look and saw that Jiang Tianxuan's face was ghastly pale. There was a green glow in his eyes, and there seemed to be worms wiggling in his veins. Oh no, voodoo poison. Great-grandfather 3 sensed something was wrong. He flew over and slapped the back of Jiang Tianxuan's head to knock him out. Jiang Tianxuan was poisoned by the voodoo poison. If he was not controlled, Jiang Tianxuan would start killing his own people. Send Elder Jiang back immediately and seal him in ice. Great-grandfather 3 yelled and asked them to send Jiang Tianxuan back. Then he shouted at the wicked bead, "Grandmaster, come over here and help." Lu Li heard the roar and used psychic power to check. He saw Jiang Tianxuan being carried away. He flew into a rage. That was Jiang Qiling's grandpa. How could he explain to Jiang Qiling if he died here? He didn't dare to say anything because Jiang Qiling could hear him. He said vaguely, "Great-grandfather 3, take care of the rest." Whoosh! The wicked bead smashed into the voodoo race army like a shooting star, smashing more than a dozen to death. Then, the wicked bead flew up and smashed away the voodoo race warriors nearby. There's also a large tribe of the shaman tribe over there. When most of the voodoo race warriors were defeated, Lu Li flew the wicked bead to the other side. What bothered him was that the 4 alien races were scattered when they were fleeing. There were voodoo race warriors everywhere. Lu Li had to choose the place with the largest number of voodoo race warriors. As more and more of the 4 alien races were dying, the remaining ones lost all hope. They began to fight back. The human armies and powerful warriors were closing in. Only a limited number of people could escape from the valley. The 4 alien races might as well fight with their lives on the line. The casualties on the human side were increasing. Most of them were killed by the voodoo race and the Asmodeans. The 4 alien races had been working together for years. The barbarian race would fight at the front, the feather race would provide support in midair, the voodoo race would release poison from the back, and the Asmodeans would launch sneak attacks from the dark. This strategy was lethal to the human race. Some powerful voodoo race warriors had voodoo poison in their hands. Their targets were not average human warriors, but patriarchs of the demon-slaying hall or young human talents. More and more patriarchs and talents were sent back to the demon-slaying city. Since there was no antidote, they had to be sent back and sealed in ice. Fortunately, Uncle 9 of the Jun family had taken down the master of the voodoo race. Lu Li and the others were not in a hurry. Lung Wuxin had been working on the antidote. There was still room for negotiation. Lu Li continued to press on with the wicked bead. Lu Renhuang and Patriarch of Law Enforcement were wearing mystic armors. The chances of them being poisoned were slim. The voodoo poison had to be melted into the human body through blood before it could take effect. As long as they were not injured, they would not be afraid of the voodoo poison. They fought from dusk to nightfall, and from nightfall to midnight. Apart from the 2 million soldiers who managed to escape, more than half of the remaining 7 million soldiers had been killed. Only less than 1 million soldiers were left, barely holding on. More than half of them had died in Lu Li's hands, or because of him. It had been a long time. Fearing that the Asmodean Lord would come back, Lu Li sent a message for the army to retreat. Retreat. Patriarch of Law Enforcement was surprised. The remaining 1 million could be wiped out in less than an hour as long as they kept on killing. Why would they retreat now? The other patriarchs of the demon-slaying hall were taken aback. They did not retreat at once. Lu Li had just become the Grand Master of the demon-slaying hall, and his authority had not been established yet. If it were Xing Mu, his order would be carried out at once. Nobody would question or disobey. Bang! Patriarch of Law Enforcement smashed away a barbarian race, Earth, immortal realm warrior. Turning to the wicked bead, he asked, "Grand Master, How about we retreat in an hour? No. Luli's answer was domineering and firm. That being said, he did not explain why he wanted them to retreat at once. Patriarch of Law Enforcement waved his hand and said, "Tell the warriors to retreat. Deacons, stay and continue the fight." Those that could be deacons were at least at the human sovereign realm. The warriors were at the eternal realm or the noble lord realm. Patriarch of Law Enforcement's order was passed down. Many warriors were not happy about it. After all, they were having a good time, and they were about to kill all the alien races. How could they retreat now? However, when the order was passed down, the warriors had no choice but to leave. After all, the number of powerful warriors was small, only 1/10 of the entire army. It would be fast for them to retreat. Of course, there were at least thousands of human sovereign realm warriors and Earth immortal realm warriors that stayed. By the time the army retreated back to the city, it had been an hour. The remaining powerful warriors and Luli had killed another 3 to 400,000 alien races. You go as well. I will take care of the rest. Seeing that Patriarch of Law Enforcement and the others were still there, Luli sent another order. Patriarch of Law Enforcement frowned and said, "How about we let the Patriarch stay and the others go first?" Luli took a look. There were 50 or 60 Patriarchs. It would be hard for him to put all of them into the wicked bead. Luli thought about it and said, "Just leave 20 powerful Patriarchs here. Great-grandpa, you go back to the city. Also, I will have the voodoo race master brought back to the city." This time, nearly 10 Patriarchs and many deacons were poisoned. Luli did not know how many were poisoned. The voodoo poison must be solved or those people would die. Patriarch of Law Enforcement thought about it and said to Lu Ren Huang, "Then, I will leave with 20 Patriarchs here to help Grandmaster. Let's go back." "Let's go." Patriarch of Law Enforcement left with the others. However, right at that moment, the space in front of him was torn apart. A dark shadow snuck out. His blood-red eyes were cold and frightening. A voice that sounded like a demon from hell came out. "Great-grandpa, Luli, you have killed civilians of the Asmodeans. I will bury your great-grandpa with you." Chapter 853. No, the moment the Asmodean Lord showed up, Luli cried out in alarm. He had planned to put the rest into the wicked bead as soon as they went back to the city. It would be fine even if the Asmodean Lord came back. The time for one incense stick to burn. Just the time for one incense stick to burn. Luli was enraged. He flew the wicked bead toward Patriarch of Law Enforcement and shouted, "Run in different directions. This is an order. Disobey." The Patriarchs were running toward Patriarch of Law Enforcement to fight the Asmodean Lord together. None of them took Li's order seriously. After all, Li's authority was not established yet. They were not used to obeying his orders. But the last sentence woke them up. After all, Li was the Grandmaster. How could they disobey him? Immediately, many people hesitated for a moment and then fled in all directions. Bang, Patriarch of Law Enforcement had been stabbed by the Asmodean Lord. Even though he had an 8th rank mystic armor and special defensive means related to Earth, the sword still pierced into Patriarch of Law Enforcement's left shoulder. Go to hell, Patriarch of Law Enforcement did not try to dodge. He merely moved his vital part away from the sword and swung his iron rod at the Asmodean Lord like a dragon whip. Patriarch of Law Enforcement was confident in his attacks because he had learned the profound meaning of destruction. If the Asmodean Lord was hit, he would be wounded if not killed. However, what shocked Patriarch of Law Enforcement was that the Asmodean Lord had just stabbed him. When Patriarch of Law Enforcement's iron rod hit him, the Asmodean Lord's body fell apart and melted. This was not the real Asmodean Lord. Swish! A piercing sound came from behind him as a sharp aura pierced into his back, causing his bones to turn cold. Patriarch of Law Enforcement said to himself, "This is not good." This sword was aimed at his heart. "Asmodean Lord, take this." A thunderous roar rang out as a spear stabbed out from the left. The spear directly pierced through the void and appeared behind the great demonic god. Moreover, A bone-chilling aura emanated from the tip of the spear. It was the profound meaning of ice. The Asmodean Lord snorted. He did not stab at Patriarch of Law Enforcement's back with his short sword. Instead, he turned around to face the spear. Bang! The golden spear continued forward, knocking aside the short sword and piercing into the great demon god's body. However, as soon as the body exploded, the great demonic god had stealthily slipped away. All right, Luli looked over. He was relieved to see that Patriarch of Law Enforcement was saved by Lu Renhuang. If Lu Renhuang hadn't made a move just now, Patriarch of Law Enforcement would have been seriously injured even if he didn't die. Whoosh! Luli flew the wicked bead over at once and smashed into Patriarch of Law Enforcement and Lu Renhuang. When he was close enough, Luli shouted, "Do not resist. I will let you in." Elder of Law Enforcement did not resist and was directly taken in. But Lu Renhuang resisted. He had to. Behind him, a shadow tore open the void and slashed at his legs. If he did not use Xian energy and defensive measures, he would lose his legs as soon as he entered the wicked bead. With a loud roar, layers of thick ice appeared all over his body as he thrust his spear downwards. He didn't dodge, as if the great demonic god dared to continue attacking. He had the confidence to pierce through the great demonic god's body. Buzzing, space above Lu Renhuang's head was torn open again. Another great demonic god came out. The one behind Lu Renhuang was still there. Now, there was another clone. Lu Renhuang was troubled. No wonder Xing Mu could be killed by the Asmodean Lord. The Asmodean Lord's means were incredible. Nobody could tell where the real one was. Besides, the clones were fast. Buzzing, after Luli took Patriarch of Law Enforcement in, he released a small amount of feather wind to cover the area. The feather wind covered an area with a radius of 100 feet around Lu Renhuang. Luli shouted, "Father, attack according to my instructions. When you see any movement in space, stab at it. Do not hesitate." "Okay," Lu Renhuang shouted. He used psychic power to check. The feather wind in front of him trembled slightly. Without thinking, Lu Renhuang stabbed at the feather wind. Clank, a sound of metal hitting metal came out. Lu Renhuang was cheered up. The spear had hit the real Asmodean Lord. Luli could sense where the Asmodean Lord was. Ha ha ha. Lu Renhuang laughed. The Asmodeans were not good at face-to-face combat. Their most horrifying skill was assassination and sneak attacks. As long as Lu Renhuang could locate where the Asmodean Lord was at all times, he would not be afraid, even if the Asmodean Lord was at a higher realm than him. The Asmodean Lord's real body disappeared in midair and then went back into the crack in space. Lu Renhuang looked around. When he noticed the movement of feather wind on the right, he made another move. Clank! The Asmodean Lord had to take out his weapon to defend himself, or else he would have been killed by Lu Renhuang. The Asmodeans were ferocious in attack, but not in defense. They were stronger than the voodoo race and the feather race, but not as strong as the barbarian race. The Asmodean Lord snorted. This time, he did not come out. The next second, he showed up next to a patriarch of the demon-slaying hall and pierced through the back of the patriarch's head with his sword. Whoosh, 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 the other patriarchs and deacons were running for their lives. Unfortunately, compared to the Asmodean Lord, they were too slow. Luli threw a glance, but there was nothing he could do. He took Lu Renhuang into the wicked bead, and then flew to the patriarchs one by one. No, Granduncle 3. After killing 3 people in a row, the Asmodean Lord reappeared next to Lu Li's Granduncle 3. Lu Li bellowed, "Asmodean Lord, how dare you kill my Granduncle 3? I, Lu Li, swear that I will wipe out the Asmodeans." Ha, 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 the Asmodean Lord laughed delightfully. "This is your Granduncle 3? Good." Bang! The Asmodean Lord's short sword pierced into Granduncle 3's head. Even though Granduncle 3 had a quasi-relic, he could not stop the sword. Last time, the tip of the short sword was bitten off by Little White. Luli wondered how the Asmodean lord repaired it. The short sword was even more powerful than a quasi-relic. Bang, bang, bang. After the Asmodean lord pulled out the long sword, he wielded it again and cut at Granduncle Three's limbs, crushing them. By the time Luli arrived, Granduncle Three had turned into minced meat. Ah! Go to hell, Asmodean lord! Luli's furious shout echoed in the sky. In the hall in the Wicked Bead, Patriarch of Law Enforcement and Lu Ran Huang were grief-stricken. Great-grandfather 3 was Patriarch of Law Enforcement's cousin, one of the progenitors of the Lu family. Darling. Looking at the furious Lu Li, Jiang Qiling wanted to comfort him, but she did not know what to say. Luli did not have time to talk to them. He controlled the Wicked Bead to take in more people while holding back his grief. Ah ha ha! The Asmodean lord laughed. He killed one human warrior after another. There were thousands here. How could all of them run away at the same time? More importantly, the shield in the city had been activated. Some had run to the edge of the city, but the city could not close the shield to let them in. Otherwise, the Asmodean lord would make his way in, which would be a nightmare for the entire city. Clearly, Luli had noticed this as well. After a moment of consideration, he shouted, I am Luli. Open the shield at my command. If the Asmodean lord dares to enter the city, I will kill him. How can I do that? That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.